A boy is kneeling in the snow, while his entire team treats him like trash. Black curse writing covers most of his body, his left eye is destroyed, and years of carrying other people's curses have left him barely conscious. Yet one of his teammates still orders him to take another curse from their injured leader, Arthur. The boy warns them that Black Hood has reached its limit. Then he reaches for Arthur anyway, because absorbing their curses is the only reason this team ever kept him around. His name is Krash Valheim, and Black Hood lets him steal a curse from another person and place it inside his own body. The curse leaves them, but its pain, damage, and side effects continue inside Krash. His teammates walk away clean while he carries everything that was killing them. The pink-haired witch, Abella, once received a curse that was destroying her voice. Since losing her voice would leave her unable to use magic, she begged Krash to absorb it. He did, and that curse has been tearing through his body ever since. But when the pain became too much, and Krash asked for painkillers, Abella attacked him for it. Mary Diana, the dark-haired spear warrior, was even worse. She kept charging into danger and collecting curses, because she knew Krash would remove them afterward. Even his left eye got destroyed when he tried to save his teammates and restore Mary's damaged sight. Krash was treated like a failure long before the end of the world. At the academy, other students attacked and mocked him because stealing curses did not make him strong in battle. Later, those same heroes depended on that supposedly useless ability whenever a curse threatened their lives. Krash endured it because he believed saving the world mattered more than how they treated him. More importantly, he trusted Arthur. Back at the academy, Arthur was the one who reached out a hand to the boy everyone else looked down on. Krash later watched him fight at the front of the Azure generation, and accepted him as the man who would lead humanity to victory. As long as Arthur kept moving forward, Krash believed all of his suffering had a purpose. The disaster they are fighting is called world erosion. Another dimension is eating into reality, changing the land and opening the way for monsters known as erosion species. Once enough of the world is consumed, human territory becomes something completely alien. Humanity placed its hopes on the Azure generation, a group of young heroes powerful enough to fight back. But now, almost the entire world is gone. Only 5 people remain at the final battlefield. Arthur stands at the center with Sigrun Fiania, the silver-haired third princess of the Fiania Empire. Beside her are Abella, the Red Witch of the Magic Tower, Mary Diana, the Empire's strongest spear, and Krash, the support they never treated like a real companion. Across the frozen wasteland waits the Blue Death Knight, a colossal undead warrior, mounted on an equally dead horse. The mana pouring from it is enough to tell all 5 of them the same thing. In their current condition, they cannot win. Sigrun raises her sword. Abella gathers what little magic she has left, and Mary prepares for one final charge. However, Arthur looks at the Death Knight and decides that the world cannot be saved. Krash erupts at him. Entire cities burned and countless people died just to bring the Azure generation this far. Arthur was supposed to lead these fools and save the world, not surrender when they finally reached the last enemy. Sigrun immediately orders Krash to shut up and calls him trash, who can do nothing but steal. So Krash throws every sacrifice back in their faces. Abella still has her voice because he took her curse. Mary still has her sight because his own eye was destroyed saving hers. Their group reached this battlefield because Krash kept carrying the damage the heroes left behind. None of them can deny it, but none of them care either. Arthur is the one betrayal Krash cannot accept. The others always treated him like dirt, but Arthur once offered him a place at his side. Krash stayed because he believed the Hero King would never abandon the world he had promised to save. Arthur finally tells him the truth. Turns out, the hero has a regression ability. This is not the first apocalypse Arthur has witnessed. Whenever a timeline reaches an ending he cannot overcome, regression lets him return to the past and begin again. This time, Arthur also acquired a technique called memory inheritance. It allows selected companions to carry their memories and combat experience into the next timeline. Arthur has chosen Sigrun, Abella, and Mary, so the 4 of them can restart with everything they learned in this world. Krash asks if he is coming too. Dark chains wrap around his neck and body before Arthur gives him an answer. No. Arthur admits that Black Hood is useful, especially against curses no one else can break. The problem is that the current Krash has already absorbed too many of them. His body is ruined, his mind is collapsing, and he cannot keep carrying their curses much longer. Taking this Krash into the next world would be inefficient. Arthur would rather return to the past, find a younger version before the damage begins, and recruit that clean replacement instead. Krash finally understands what he was to them. Once one version breaks, Arthur can regress and collect another. Arthur calmly tells him that he will make good use of Krash in the next world, and the world after that, before turning away with the 3 women. As the regression begins, Krash sees the scale of the betrayal. Countless versions of him had joined Arthur, carried the hero's curses, and been discarded in dying worlds once their bodies stopped being useful. The exact faces change, but every Krash ends in the same pile. However, Arthur never knew Black Hood's full ability. Everyone thinks Krash can only steal curses. In reality, he can steal skills as well. Krash never tested it on regression, because a unique skill that powerful was nothing like an ordinary curse. But the world is already finished. His body is dying, and his team has chosen to leave him behind. There is nothing left to protect. As Arthur activates regression, Krash releases Black Hood. A massive purple shadow surges across the battlefield and closes around Arthur. The skill he planned to use without Krash stops obeying him, and for the first time, the Hero King panics. Right then, the Blue Death Knight raises its weapon. Arthur struggles as the attack descends, but Krash refuses to save him again. He tells Arthur that this time, he is the one being abandoned. If he wants to survive, he can struggle alone for once. The Death Knight's attack crashes into the regression energy. Krash turns Arthur's own excuse back on him. If this world is already headed for ruin, then Arthur can stay behind and face it. Krash declares that he will save the next world himself, and the frozen battlefield disappears in a burst of light. When he opens his eyes, he is lying inside the ornate bedroom where he lived as a child. The curse writing is gone. His left eye is restored. Even the hand raised in front of his face is small and completely uninjured. Krash Valheim has returned to his 13-year-old body with every memory of the ruined world still inside him. Summer sunlight pours through Krash's bedroom at Green Pine Manor. The world he just left was buried beneath a deadly winter, so the heat tells him that the reset worked. His curses are gone, his injuries have vanished, and Arthur is nowhere in sight. Black Hood really did steal regression and carry Krash into the past. The strange part is how easily it happened. When Black Hood targets something its owner treasures, it normally creates a padlock with conditions Krash must complete before he can steal it. The lock follows personal value, not market price, so even a roadside stone could demand 99% of the world's wealth if its owner considered that stone precious. Yet Arthur's unique regression skill produced no lock at all. Krash remembers the Hero King dragging himself through every failed plan as if saving the world had become another exhausting chore. After watching the same apocalypse happen again and again, Arthur may have stopped seeing regression as a second chance and started seeing it as the curse trapping him inside the cycle. As far as Krash can tell, Arthur hated the skill so much that Black Hood found nothing left to unlock. That explanation does not earn Arthur any forgiveness. He still used Krash until his body broke and planned to replace him with a younger version. Without regression, Arthur was left beneath the Blue Death Knight's meteor shower. Krash is certain the attack killed him, and he has no sympathy left for the Hero King who abandoned the comrade carrying everyone's curses. Krash steps into the hallway and studies his reflection. His body is small again, but daily sword practice has already given it a solid foundation. Even as a child, he trained because strength was the only protection he could earn inside the Valheim family. The Valheims are the strongest martial clan in the Starland Kingdom. Every direct descendant must stand before the family during the proof ceremony, where a god chooses the child and grants them a skill. One child after another walks away with a divine contract, praise from the adults, and a future inside the clan. Then, Krash takes his turn, and no god chooses him. The family ignores every day he spent training with a sword. With no divine contract and no obvious combat talent, they immediately label him a failure. The only direct descendant they do not want is removed from the main house and sent to Green Pine Manor, the estate where Valheim hides relatives it considers useless. In the first timeline, Krash accepted that judgment and slowly gave up on himself. This time, he knows where that path ends. World erosion will consume kingdom after kingdom until the Azure generation reaches a battlefield it cannot survive. If Krash does nothing, the world will die and take him with it. His hand begins to shake as the ruined future flashes through his mind. Krash forces it still. He does not need to save the world out of some grand sense of duty. Staying alive is reason enough to change it. Footsteps approach before he can decide where to begin. An elderly man in a formal butler suit and monocle walks down the hall with the same gentle expression Krash remembers from childhood. His name is Ariad, and he is the only servant assigned to Green Pine Manor. Even after the family threw Krash away, Ariad remained beside him as his caretaker. Seeing him alive brings back the first betrayal Krash remembers. In the original timeline, when Krash was 14, one of his brothers gave Ariad poison meant for Krash's food. Krash has never forgotten that the man who raised him like a son carried that murder order into their home. Ariad greets him as young master and asks why he is standing alone in the hallway. Krash walks straight up, grabs the front of his butler's coat, and looks him in the eye. "The poison my brother gave you to kill me. When are you planning to put it in my food?" The reason poison ever reached Green Pine Manor begins with Krash's older sister Charlotte Valheim. At 15, Charlotte stands in the middle of a training hall, while adult Valheim knights crash into the walls around her. Not one of them manages to touch her. The spectators call her the Sword Saint, and a once-in-a-thousand-years genius. Charlotte looks over the defeated knights, and calls the entire match boring. Krash's half-brother, Belokin Valheim, watches from the upper gallery. He wants to remove the entire bloodline connected to Charlotte and Krash, but Charlotte is far too powerful to attack directly. Bolokin also considers the unnamed mother connected to that branch too dangerous to confront. That leaves only Krash, the younger brother the family already branded a useless failure. Bolokin chooses Ariad because the butler is Krash's only caretaker. He prepares Krash's meals, enters his rooms without suspicion, and has direct access to him every day. Bolokin hands Ariad a bottle of poison strong enough to kill with one drop, and promises to pay for his biological daughter's treatment if he puts that drop into Krash's food. Ariad refuses. He may serve the family failure, but he raised Krash like his own son. So Bolokin forces him to face the one choice he cannot answer, Krash or his sick daughter. When the assassination day arrives in the original timeline, Ariad enters the dining room carrying poisoned stew. He has taken the murder order far enough to prepare the meal, but when the moment comes, he cannot feed it to the boy he raised. Ariad eats the stew himself. Krash finds him on the floor, coughing blood, and pulls him into his arms. Ariad apologizes and says Krash was always as precious to him as a son. Then the poison kills him before Krash can do anything. Back in the present, Ariad freezes beneath Krash's accusation and pretends he knows nothing. Krash tells him that he already understands the motive. Bolokin offered to treat Ariad's daughter if he used his access to poison the family failure. Krash keeps pressing until he sees Ariad trapped between the same two children all over again. Continued interrogation will only push Ariad back toward the impossible corner that killed him in the first timeline. Krash has not forgotten that his caretaker carried the plan as far as the poisoned stew, but a confession will not change what happened. So he releases Ariad's coat, turns away, and orders him to follow. The sudden change unsettles Ariad more than shouting would have. Until yesterday, Krash looked like a child who had lost any reason to live. Now he knows about a hidden murder order, stops the interrogation on his own terms, and walks toward the study with a clear objective. Krash enters the room, stops in front of a decorated wall, and tells Ariad to cut through it. The butler stares at him for a moment, but Krash reminds him that a servant of the strongest martial family should be capable of that much. Ariad draws his sword. Blue-violet energy covers the blade, and one clean slash removes an entire section of the wall. Behind it is a stone corridor Ariad never knew existed. Krash discovered this passage much later in his first life, but the archive beyond it had already burned by then. This time, he has reached the hidden knowledge before the fire can destroy it. At the end of the corridor stands a heavy door wrapped in ornate chains. Ariad offers to cut through them, but Krash knows the seal is beyond his sword. Instead, he raises a hand and tests whether Black Hood followed him into this young body. The monstrous purple shadow rises behind him without hesitation. It reaches for the seal, purple energy spreads across the lock, and the chains tear free from the door. Krash catches one as it falls, only to discover that it is far heavier than it looks. Ariad watches the impossible display, and reaches the only explanation that makes sense to him. Krash must have formed a contract with a god, and received a skill. The problem is that Krash had not formed his original contract at this point in the first timeline. Black Hood should not be here yet. Since explaining regression would create far more questions, he tells Ariad that an insignificant god granted it to him. After watching that so-called insignificant skill open a seal his sword could not damage, Ariad clearly does not believe the description. Even so, he promises not to tell anyone about the passage until Krash finishes what he came to do. That promise is already different from the first timeline. Present Ariad is changing because Krash changed the way he treated him, but the memory of Ariad dying in his arms remains exactly the same. For a moment, Krash wonders if seeing familiar people become different after every reset helped wear Arthur down. It might even explain why Arthur had come to hate regression, but Krash has no way to know for certain. What he does know is that Ariad can become a useful ally. If Krash finds a cure for his daughter, Bolokin loses the only leverage he has over him. The cure will have to wait, because the sealed door is opening and the energy pouring from the other side makes Krash's skin crawl. Beyond it lies the secret library beneath Green Pine Manor. Generations of Valheims who were rejected as failures recorded their complete techniques and memories inside these tomes, leaving a path for the next discarded descendant to continue their work. This power was built by humans, not handed down by gods. The library remained open until one rejected Valheim changed its history. His name was Damaris Valheim, the worst failure the family had ever produced. After world erosion consumed him, he became the strongest person in Valheim history. Krash follows the violent red and black energy through the shelves until he finds Damaris's secret tome. He takes the book in both hands, apologizes to the forgotten ancestors for arriving so late, and claims the legacy of Valheim's worst failure for himself. At the height of Damaris Valheim's power, some of the world's strongest warriors surrounded him together. It did not matter. Violent red and black energy ripped across the battlefield, as Damaris tore through every one of them. The complete tome finally tells Krash how Valheim's worst failure became its strongest warrior. Damaris created a secret art called Extreme Blood Immersion Poison, which draws world erosion into the user's body and turns that destructive energy into a weapon. Krash found this tome in his first life, but half of it had already burned. All he knew then was that Damaris eventually lost his mind. After reading the missing pages, Krash suspects the reason was simple. Damaris brought world erosion into his body and never found a way to stop it from rampaging. Krash has survived that kind of curse before. Black Hood weakened the world erosion inside him. Then he kept what remained under control by balancing it against other curses. If he can place a second curse against Damaris's secret art, the two powers may restrain each other. It is not a proven solution, but it is the only path Krash has. He begins training from the tome. Purple-black aura gathers around his young body as he forces the first stage of the technique into place. Before going any further, Krash orders Ariad to seal Green Pine Manor and let no one enter. Ariad accepts the order and makes his own decision. Krash knew about Belokin's poison, yet he stopped before forcing Ariad back into that impossible choice and kept the betrayal from the rest of the family. Ariad sees that restraint as mercy. He rejects Belokin's assassination proposal and accepts Krash as his true master. Belokin is furious when the butler he recruited chooses the family failure instead. He already resents the bloodline that produced Charlotte, the genius who pushed him aside, and now even Krash is slipping out of his control. Belokin sends a servant to investigate, but the man cannot get past the entrance. Ariad has sealed the manor, drawn his sword, and refuses entry to everyone. The servant even reports that the head of the Valheim family would be turned away under Krash's order. While Belokin rages outside, Krash keeps training until his aura reaches the beginning of the expert stage. It is the point where an ordinary aura user starts becoming a serious fighter, but Krash has no reason to celebrate yet. Charlotte is only 2 years older and has already reached Aura Master. The difference between them is enormous. Worse, Krash remembers seeing that same genius exhausted and powerless during the apocalypse. If Charlotte could not stop world erosion, then reaching the beginning of expert means our boy has barely left the starting line. Still, it is more progress than his old body ever allowed. The curses inside adult Krash had destroyed his ability to use aura, while this restored body can finally grow. Damaris's secret art has given the rejected Valheim a path neither his family nor the gods ever offered him. When the training ends, Ariad is waiting outside with a towel. He congratulates Krash on reaching expert, but Krash brushes the achievement aside and asks why he has been standing there. Ariad has news. Krash's fiancée, Bianca Hardenhearts, has arrived at Green Pine Manor. Krash knows exactly who she becomes in the failed future. The World Eaters turn Bianca into their pawn, and she becomes the White Demon, one of the leaders trying to destroy the world. She grows powerful enough to defeat one of the 10 greatest warriors alive. Right now, however, Bianca is only the youngest daughter of the Hardenhearts family, the rulers of the North. Her engagement to Krash is a political deal between two families, using the children they do not want. Valheim gets to marry away its supposed failure, while the Hardenhearts gain a connection to the strongest martial clan in the kingdom. Bianca has carried a curse since before she was born. Her mother was struck by world erosion during the pregnancy, and the curse passed into the child as Snowdoll. It suppresses Bianca's emotions, corrupts her body, reaches all the way into her soul, and prevents her from forming a contract with any god. Even professional curse breakers have failed to remove it. Her family blamed Bianca for the loss of her mother, and raised her like a cursed object, instead of a daughter. Because Snowdoll keeps her expression empty, Krash could never tell what she actually thought about him. More importantly, Snowdoll is the counter-curse Krash needs for extreme blood immersion poison. If Black Hood can place it inside him, it may suppress the world erosion rampage that destroyed Damaris. Krash will only attempt the theft if it does not harm Bianca. Removing a curse that has controlled her entire life might help her as well, but he does not know that yet. Ariad then points out one small problem with this important reunion. Krash has just finished training and is standing in the corridor without a shirt. Krash finally looks down, sends Ariad to bring Bianca inside, and asks him to let her wait while he changes. Soon, a small white-haired girl sits inside Green Pine Manor with the same unreadable expression she has worn since birth. To Bianca, this is only a meeting with the hostile fiancé she remembers. To Krash, the future White Demon has arrived carrying the one curse he needs. 5 months earlier, Krash's first meeting with Bianca ended almost as soon as it began. He lashed out at her and ordered her to leave. Bianca fired back that he only cared about the power of the Valheim family and should stop pretending to be her fiancé. She never wanted to meet him either. Bianca had only come because the Hardenhearts adults forced her. Her father and another adult from the family told the child that their house could survive only by relying on Valheim. They said her pretty face should be enough to win over the youngest Valheim son, then placed the fate of the entire family on her shoulders. Snowdoll may suppress Bianca's emotions, but it does not stop her from judging the people around her. She saw the old Krash as a foul-mouthed, pessimistic loser, and knew she would have rejected him if the engagement had been her choice. That is why the boy sitting across from her now makes no sense. When Bianca tries the tea, Krash notices that it is too hot for her sensitive tongue, and suggests walking through the garden instead. He then asks Ariad to bring macadamia cookies, because he remembers they are her favorite. Bianca never told him either detail. Krash only learned them during the failed future. His polite behavior is nothing like the boy who drove her away 5 months earlier. Bianca watches his face, his eyes, and the way he speaks, until she finally asks whether he is really Krash. Krash awkwardly asks if he seems that different. Unfortunately, the killing intent he built over years of surviving the apocalypse leaks out with the question. Bianca immediately bows and apologizes, while Krash realizes he frightened her without meaning to. Regression restored his childhood body, but the details of how he treated Bianca at this age are still fuzzy. One memory is perfectly clear. He remembers seeing Bianca battered and bloodied in front of North Sea Ice Manor. The resigned expression she wore at the end of her life is the same one the child in front of him is wearing now. Krash has no intention of explaining regression, so he gives her a safer lie. He claims that he recently formed a contract with a god, and the experience changed him. Bianca accepts the explanation and congratulates him. When Krash says he has a proposal, Bianca assumes he wants to cancel their engagement. Krash admits that he would understand if she did not want to marry someone like him. Instead of agreeing, Bianca wonders why a member of the Valheim family thinks so little of himself. Then, she gives him a direct answer. She is his fiancée, and that will not change. Bianca does not confess her love or pretend the political arrangement is romantic. She simply states what she intends to do without lying, and that blunt honesty means more to Krash than a sweet answer would have. With that settled, Krash reveals what he actually wants. He asks Bianca to let Black Hood remove Snowdoll from her and transfer it into his body. Bianca reminds him that famous curse breakers have already failed to lift it. She also understands what Krash is offering. If his ability works, Snowdoll will leave her body and continue inside his. Krash confirms that he wants to use the curse, but he does not tell her about extreme blood immersion poison. Instead, he offers to grant Bianca any one wish in exchange. Even if that wish ruins him, he promises to fulfill it. That desperate offer leads Bianca to the wrong conclusion. She knows the Valheim family treats Krash as a failure, so she assumes their abuse has pushed him past his mental limit. In her mind, he wants Snowdoll because he can no longer endure his own emotions. An elderly mental mage once warned Bianca that someone suffering from a sickness of the heart may suddenly become kinder after years of anger. According to the mage, that change can mean the person is preparing to end their own life, so someone close should remain beside them. From Bianca's point of view, Krash matches the warning almost perfectly. She takes his hand and tells him not to rely on Snowdoll. She promises to visit often, and even offers to ask her father for permission to live nearby. Krash tries to explain that she misunderstood him, but Bianca has already decided that leaving him alone would be dangerous. When Krash asks why she would do so much for someone she does not even like, Bianca does not deny it. She simply says that she cannot abandon someone standing at the edge of a cliff. While she holds his hand, Krash secretly activates Black Hood and targets Snowdoll. The curse does not move. Instead, a double lock appears. Krash deduces that Snowdoll is different from an ordinary curse, because Bianca has carried it since birth. Black Hood now recognizes it as part of her body, something she personally possesses rather than a foreign curse she simply wants removed. The first unlock condition appears immediately. Krash must become Bianca's friend. The second condition remains hidden. Being her political fiancé does not count as friendship. However, keeping Bianca close gives Krash time to satisfy the lock, and it also keeps her away from the family treatment that helped turn her into the White Demon. If he succeeds, he can change Bianca's future and obtain the counter curse he needs. Krash accepts her plan and says he would be happy to see his fiancée more often. Bianca tells him that she will speak with her father and return. After she leaves, Krash assumes the next visit will take about a month and decides to spend that time studying more secret art tomes. The next morning, a wagon stops outside Green Pine Manor. Workers begin carrying boxes and luggage through the gate, while Krash watches in confusion. Bianca steps down from the wagon, greets him with the same calm expression, and announces that she will begin living at Green Pine Manor that very day. Krash stares at the mountain of belongings behind her. "You're saying we're going to live here together?" Several months later, Krash wakes up with Bianca sleeping beside him again. When she opens her eyes, she calmly asks why he is there. There is just one problem. This is Krash's room, and Bianca is the one who climbed into his bed. Ever since moving into Green Pine Manor, Bianca has followed him almost everywhere. She waits beside the training yard, reads near him, and sleeps next to him whenever he stays still long enough. Bianca still believes Krash is suffering from a sickness of the heart and cannot be left alone. Krash knows she misunderstood him, but living together also gives him the chance to complete Black Hood's first condition and become her friend. Summer turns into winter as Krash tries everything from sharing meals to walking through the garden with her. Bianca follows like a baby bird, but Black Hood never confirms that she considers him a friend. For all Krash knows, she still sees him as a patient who needs constant supervision. He spends those same months training with Damaris's secret tome, Blue-black energy covers his sword as he forces extreme blood immersion poison through his body, but his progress stops at expert beginner. Damaris's art will destroy him if he pushes it any further without a counter curse. Until Krash can safely remove Snowdoll from Bianca, his training has reached a wall. That wall matters, because Rahern Academy will begin accepting students soon. The four great kingdoms and the Empire created the academy to raise fighters capable of resisting world erosion, and students between 15 and 20 can attend. Krash will turn 14 next year, leaving him roughly 1 year to prepare. Many of the strongest fighters from the failed future studied there. Krash remembers their skills, their weaknesses, and exactly which abilities could have changed the final battle. Once he enters Rahern, our boy plans to steal every useful skill he can get his hands on. After another training session, Krash finds Bianca waiting with a book. He starts wondering whether taking her outside to play would help her understand what friendship actually feels like, but Ariad arrives before he can try it. Ariad brings an invitation to the Star Sanctuary, an annual gathering where the young nobles of Starland meet and build connections. Krash remembers almost nothing about the event, because he spent this part of his first life hiding inside Green Pine Manor. However, he knows the future's greatest alchemist should attend, and that man may be able to create a treatment for Ariad's sick daughter. Her treatment was the leverage Belokin used to force Ariad into the original poison plot. If Krash removes that problem, his caretaker will never be trapped between saving his daughter and protecting Krash again. So he accepts the invitation, and Bianca immediately announces that she is coming with him. Bianca warns that the other nobles will insult him. Krash points out that they will insult her as well, and offers to let her stay home, but she refuses. Protecting her partner is the duty of a fiancé. Krash does not want an answer forced on her by the engagement. He asks what Bianca herself wants. That question makes her remember the last few months. Krash asked what she wanted to eat, helped her choose books, and stayed beside her whenever she wanted to rest. No one in the Hardenhearts family ever treated her with that much kindness. Bianca can barely remember why she hated him during their first meeting. She tells Krash that she no longer dislikes him, and wants to attend because she chose to go with him, not because she is his fiancée. Krash accepts her decision without trying to turn it into anything more. They travel by carriage to the Gara Ryu Pavilion, the expensive tourist destination rented for the gathering. Noble families receive wealth and respect, because they are expected to fight world erosion in place of commoners. Yet most of the young nobles inside have spent far more time preparing their outfits and gossip than preparing for a battle. The whispers begin the moment Krash and Bianca enter. Guests call him Valheim's failed youngest son, and call Bianca the cursed daughter of the Northern Conqueror. Some even warn each other that staring at her might spread the curse. Neither child gives them the reaction they want. Among the useless crowd, Krash notices 3 people with genuine talent. Tiger Boy Barak Hoema, Magpie Elfin Amelia, and Woodbow Annex Kleiser will later become the 3 heroes of Starlin. For now, they sit together and watch Charlotte's supposedly useless younger brother with open interest. Their attention reminds Krash of Charlotte's own visit. His older sister returned in a red dress, bragged that not one challenger managed to defeat her, called the entire gathering a boring trash heap, and refused to attend again. Judging by how tense the room becomes whenever her name comes up, Charlotte clearly left her mark on the place. Bianca notices Krash staring into the crowd and tells him to ignore the insults. She was mocked just as badly, yet her first concern is whether the words hurt him. Krash explains that he was only remembering Charlotte, then pats Bianca on the head. She closes her eyes and accepts the gesture with a faint smile. The alchemist Krash came to meet still has not appeared. Just as he wonders whether the man skipped the gathering, an attendant announces Lord Darling Danfilian. The attention-loving lord of the alchemy castle walks into the ballroom in a loose pale outfit, waving to the entire crowd with a wide smile. The eccentric Krash was waiting for has finally arrived. The first time Krash met Darling Danfilian, his adult body was already collapsing under the curses he had taken from the Azure generation. Krash sat wounded inside a ruined forest with black curse marks covering most of his body. Darling examined him without flinching, identified several erosion curses tearing through him, and immediately began working out which medicines might keep him alive. Darling offered to cure him on one condition. Krash had to become his test subject. Krash barely had enough strength to answer, so Darling grabbed his face, threatened to begin the experiment without permission, and lunged onto him. The dying curse-bearer used what little energy he had left to scream at the lunatic to get off. That was Krash's first meeting with the man who later became the king of alchemy, and the greatest alchemist in the world. Now that same lunatic is standing inside the Star Sanctuary, exactly where Krash needs him. While Darling enjoys the attention from his admirers, Krash takes a large strawberry arrangement from the banquet table and gives it to Bianca. He asks her to wait while he handles some business, and she agrees while eating the fruit. Darling recognizes the Valheim name and immediately notices Krash's resemblance to Charlotte. Once he confirms that Krash is her younger brother, He asks whether his own appearance caught the boy's attention. Krash ignores the flirting and mentions Darling's secret research into world erosion. The alchemist's playful expression disappears. Krash has found the one subject guaranteed to make him listen. Darling takes him into a private training room and shuts the door. When Krash says he is 13, Darling points out that he feels nothing like a child. Krash cannot exactly explain that an adult academy graduate is living inside this young body, so he tells Darling to get to the point. Darling tosses him a sword and attacks the moment Krash catches it. Krash blocks the first strike and demands an explanation. Darling wants to test Charlotte's younger brother before discussing business, so he keeps attacking and orders Krash to explain his proposal while they fight. Darling expected the skill-less failure described by the rumors. Instead, Krash matches his attacks, turns aside a low sweep, slips beneath his guard, and stops his blade against Darling's neck. He credits daily practice while keeping his secret techniques and memories of the future to himself. With Darling finally paying attention, Krash exposes the research Darling has been hiding. The curse used by the World Eaters cannot be removed by ordinary dispellers, so Darling wants to neutralize it by placing other curses against it. Proving that theory would earn him recognition as a first-class alchemist. Darling asks how a boy with no alchemical training could possibly help. Krash releases a small amount of dark energy and reveals the part that matters. His ability lets him absorb curses from other people and place those curses inside his own body. Krash keeps Black Hood's full power and regression secret. Darling only needs to know that Krash can gather the curses required for his experiments. In return, the alchemist must create medicine that reduces the damage those curses cause inside Krash. Darling understands the deal immediately. Krash supplies the curses. Darling studies how they suppress one another, and the medicine keeps Krash alive through the research. Mixing medicine is Darling's specialty, so he accepts. He only asks that Krash attend Rahern Academy when it opens. Krash already planned to enroll, because the academy will gather talented students with valuable skills, so that condition changes nothing. Once Krash confirms he will attend, Darling promises to handle any medicine involving curses. Krash has one more request, and it is the reason he came looking for the future king of alchemy. Ariad's daughter needs treatment, so Krash asks Darling to develop a cure for discoloration disease, an illness that turns the victim's skin blue-black before killing them. Darling refuses at first because no cure exists. Krash remembers that Darling created one in the failed future, although it took him years, and tells him directly that he is capable of doing it again. That challenge hits Darling directly in his pride. He accepts, and the two seal the agreement with a clasp of their hands. Krash tells him to contact Green Pine Manor when the cure is ready, while Darling promises to deliver it personally. As Krash reaches the door, one question still bothers him. Darling openly loves Charlotte, so Krash asks why he keeps suggesting that her 13-year-old brother become his boyfriend. Darling explains that he likes both men and women, then calls Krash his future lover. Krash shouts that he is not included, and escapes into the hallway while Darling keeps calling after him. Krash returns to the ballroom and finds an adult man gripping Bianca's wrist. Bianca looks tense when she notices him. Krash does not wait for the stranger to drag her another step. He drives a kick into the man's body, breaks his hold on Bianca, and sends him flying across the ballroom. The stranger crashes in front of the other guests. From Krash's position, it looked like an adult was trying to take his 12-year-old fiancée by force. He moves beside Bianca and demands to know exactly what the man thought he was doing. The man Krash kicked immediately blurts out that he was acting under orders from Claudia Starlin, the second princess. She commanded him to bring Bianca to her, and when the 12-year-old refused to follow, he grabbed her wrist and tried to drag her away. The messenger insists that he did not want to use force, but disobeying a royal command was not an option. Krash has already humiliated him in front of the ballroom by asking why an adult was laying hands on a child. So the frightened man quickly explains everything he knows. The princess's involvement makes no sense. Bianca is the youngest daughter of the Hardenhearts family, which rules the north, but most nobles avoid her because of Snowdoll. Claudia has no reason to summon her in the middle of the gathering. Krash searches his memories of the failed future and realizes that the princess is only part of someone else's plan. The person behind the invitation is Anix Kleiser, the brown-haired woodbow sitting with the future 3 heroes of Starlin. Anix once suffered a humiliating defeat at the Star Sanctuary and became obsessed with Charlotte. He hated Krash's older sister because he could never surpass her, but he also admired her strength. Once that obsession twisted far enough, he redirected it toward the younger brother everyone considered useless. Now the bait makes sense. Anix used the second princess's authority to pull Bianca away because he knew Krash would follow his fiancée straight to him. Krash has no reason to waste time confronting Claudia. He takes Bianca by the hand and heads directly toward Anix, leaving the terrified messenger behind. While they walk, Krash asks why Bianca refused a direct order from a princess. He could recognize the trap because he remembers the future, but Bianca had no idea who was waiting for her. Her answer is much simpler. Krash told her to wait, so she waited. Bianca placed his instruction above a royal command without even knowing whether he would return. Krash smiles, pats her head, and tells her that she did well. That blind trust means more than anything their political engagement could have forced from her. They reach the private terrace where Anix is waiting. But Tiger Boy Barack Hoima stands outside the doors. The silver-haired boy happily confirms that Anix ordered him to let Krash inside as soon as he arrived. Barack still refuses to move. He heard that Krash once fought Charlotte at the Star Sanctuary, and now he wants a match of his own. Krash reminds him that fighting is forbidden here. Barack does not care. If Krash was allowed to challenge Charlotte, then Barack believes he deserves the same chance. In the failed future, Barack became a dangerous dual swordsman. His expert aura was impressive, but his real strength was a wild combat instinct that made every attack difficult to predict. Krash would rather save his energy for Anix, but the excitement in Barack's eyes makes one thing clear. The Tiger Boy will not step aside until someone puts him down. Krash accepts, and Barack attacks before even drawing a weapon. The boy rushes forward with quick, irregular strikes. Krash catches one arm, redirects his momentum, and sweeps him off his feet. Before Barack can recover, Krash follows him down and places one fist directly against his torso. From that tiny distance, Krash releases the 1-inch punch. The force passes through Barack's body and drives him into the floor. Blood runs from his mouth as he curls around the pain, while Krash calmly rises above him. 1-inch punch came from another Valheim who had been branded a failure. It drives all of the user's power through a point-blank strike and damages the target from inside. In the original timeline, it was the only technique Krash saved from the Burning Manor, and it kept him alive through countless close-range battles. Barack calls him merciless, but Krash reminds the boy who demanded the match. Barack still asks whether they can continue after he retrieves his swords, so Krash asks a more immediate question. Can he even stand up? Barack grins, tries to rise and drops straight back onto the floor. Bianca asks what Krash did to him. Krash explains that he used his best Valheim technique, and that Barack will not be moving for a while. The defeated Tiger Boy accepts that answer without a trace of resentment, and finally lets them enter. Inside the private terrace, Anix is waiting beside the dark-haired magpie, Elfin Amelia. Anix laughs when he sees Krash leave Barack on the floor, but Krash skips the congratulations and exposes the entire setup. He accuses Anix of using the second princess to summon Bianca as bait. Anix's reaction tells Krash that he identified the lure correctly, and the Woodbow asks how the family failure saw through him. He also admits that Krash acts nothing like the rumors. Krash fires back that Anix is the one who spread those rumors, including the story that Charlotte's younger brother was weak. Anix does not confess, but the fight outside has already damaged Krash's reputation as a helpless failure. Anix responds with another challenge. If Krash loses here, the rumors surrounding him will change again. Krash reaches out, grips Anix's arm, and activates Black Hood. Purple-black energy coils around the noble as Krash declares exactly what he came to take. He is going to steal Anix's skill. Before Black Hood can take anything, Anix answers Krash's threat with a challenge. The nobles already treat every rumor about the Valheim failure as fact. If Krash defeats Anix Kleiser in front of witnesses, that reputation will have to change. Krash knows this is not a friendly match. In the original timeline, Anix was one of his academy companions, and stayed beside him after they joined the Azure generation. Krash once considered him a friend, but Anix only kept him close because that friendship provided access to Charlotte. The truth came out during a mission when Anix led their party into a trap. Most of the group was left motionless inside a ravine, while Krash hung from the edge and called for help. Anix stood safely above him and knew the disaster was his fault. If the Azure generation discovered his mistake, his rivals would use it to remove him from the group. So Anix decided to survive alone and bury the truth with everyone else. He would blame the trap on Krash because the entire group already hated its supposedly useless curse-bearer. An accusation against Krash would be accepted before anyone bothered to defend him. Krash saw through the plan immediately. He accused Anix of never treating him like a real friend and only using him to approach Charlotte. He also knew why Anix had walked the party into the trap. Charlotte was about to marry someone else, and Anix had spent the entire mission distracted by it. Anix did not deny a thing. He admitted that Krash's sharp intuition was exactly why he hated him. Since Charlotte's marriage made Krash useless, their relationship could end with Krash's death. He even thanked Krash for being his friend until the end before walking away. Krash finally lost his grip and fell, but Arthur reached over the cliff and caught his arm. That rescue brought Krash onto Arthur's team and began his miserable life as the Azure generation's curse-bearer. Arthur later testified about the trap. Anix's betrayal was exposed, and he was expelled from the Azure generation. After losing his position, Anix became desperate enough to pursue a marriage with an unnamed princess. Back in the present, Anix studies Krash and says that both his face and the way he speaks resemble Charlotte. That one comparison tells Krash the obsession never disappeared. Krash warns him not to say his sister's name so casually. However, he accepts one part of the comparison. Just like Charlotte, Krash never backs down once someone challenges him to a fight. Our boy charges first, but thick branches burst across the terrace before he can reach Anix. Krash jumps onto one, changes direction, and flips between the next attacks as more wood closes around him from every side. Anix is using the Kleiser family's heaven-toppling wood style. The technique strengthens plants with aura and lets him control their movements, while an additional recovery skill multiplies the wood faster than Krash can destroy it. The entire terrace becomes Anix's weapon. Branches sweep across the floor, roots strike from below, and every path toward him closes. Standing safely in the center, Anix tells the unarmed boy that he should have brought a weapon. Krash snaps off one of Anix's branches and holds it like a sword. If Anix wants him armed, Krash will defeat him using his own wood. Another wall of branches crashes toward him, but Krash moves straight into the attack and slips through the gaps. Anix cannot understand how a supposed failure reads every angle. Krash fought beside him for years before Regression, and memorized every pattern inside heaven-toppling wood style. Against Krash, the current Anix could not have chosen a worse opponent. Krash asks whether he is thinking about Charlotte again. The question hits the same obsession that ruined their old mission, and Anix finally loses his calm. Green aura floods the terrace as every branch combines into the fifth form of heaven-toppling wood style, the heaven-toppling wood giant. The enormous wooden body towers over Krash and raises one fist. Elfin shouts for Anix to stop because a direct hit could permanently cripple the 13-year-old, but Anix brings the giant arm down anyway. Krash does not run. He closes his eyes and remembers the thinnest manual inside Green Pine Manor's hidden library. Its author was another ancestor with no talent. The man spent his entire life repeating one ordinary sword swing until his weapon moved like part of his own body, then recorded everything he learned inside one short book. Understanding that state should have taken Krash a lifetime. Instead, the curses inside his old body already dragged him through more life or death battles than most warriors could survive. Those experiences let him understand what the ancestor discovered after 80 years of practice. Blue-white aura covers the broken branch. For one instant, it stops feeling like a piece of Anix's wood and moves like part of Krash's body. The giant fist drops. Krash swings once. One sword. The vertical slash tears through the wood giant from top to bottom and splits every branch behind it along the same line. Wood and dust crash across the terrace while Bianca watches Krash standing unharmed inside the wreckage. Anix remains on his feet, but his hands are trembling. Krash points the broken branch at his former friend and tells him never to become cocky in front of him again. Then he demands to know whether Anix understands. The cost of one sword hits Krash the moment the broken branch falls from his hand. He planned to hold back enough strength to continue preparing Anix's skill for theft. But destroying the wood giant required everything his young body had. Now he cannot move a muscle or force out a single sentence. Bianca catches him before he falls. Unfortunately, even her arms pressing against his body hurt so much that Krash can only grunt. Elfin quickly takes over, carries him onto her back, and leaves the Star Sanctuary with Bianca walking beside them. The nobles they pass are already spreading the news. The talentless youngest son of Valheim just defeated Anix Kleiser in front of witnesses, tearing apart every rumor that called Krash weak. Elfin expects him to wake up famous, but Anix's expression after the defeat worries her far more than the gossip. She also wants to study Krash's strange abilities, and refuses to let him die before he cooperates. Krash loses consciousness during the carriage ride and spends an entire week recovering. Once he can move again, he returns to the training yard and works out how much of his theft plan survived the duel. Black Hood can steal a valuable skill in two ways. Krash can complete its padlock conditions directly, or he can make the owner value the skill less until those conditions become easier. He chose the second method for Anix. Anix built his pride around his strength, yet the failure he looked down on destroyed his strongest attack with one broken branch. Krash expects that humiliation to spread doubt through him over time. Once Anix stops valuing his own power so highly, Krash will take the recovery skill that multiplies the plants used in heaven-toppling wood style. Passing out prevented Krash from finishing the preparation, so recovery still belongs to Anix. Even so, the public defeat gave him the first crack he needed. With roughly 1 year remaining before Rahern Academy, Krash wants to train every day until he can surpass the geniuses waiting there. That plan is interrupted when Ariad reports that Master Belokin has arrived at Green Pine Manor. Belokin is the half-brother who tried to make Ariad poison Krash in exchange for paying for his daughter's treatment. Krash has already refused 22 messages from him. Now Belokin has come in person, and refusing to meet him again would only reveal that Krash is deliberately avoiding him. So he tells Ariad to let his brother inside. While they wait, Bianca brings Krash water after training. She stops before handing him the cup, and tells him that he smells of sweat. Years around world erosion have destroyed Krash's standards for bad smells, so he barely notices. Bianca advises him to shower before meeting Belokin. Krash refuses because he expects to start moving again soon. Bianca responds by telling him not to come near her. The moment Krash asks whether she is giving orders to her own fiancé, she grabs her book and runs. Krash chases her across the room, privately realizing that Bianca has become like a little sister he enjoys teasing. The peaceful moment also makes Krash realize how much this new life is softening him. He remembers Arthur asking whether peace had already made him too careless to prevent the destruction of the world. Krash still hates Arthur for abandoning him at the end, but he cannot deny the hero who came before that betrayal. Arthur always fought at the front and never lowered his guard. Remembering that discipline makes Krash wonder where the younger Arthur is in this timeline, and what he is doing without regression. Before he can think further, Belokin enters and mocks him for playing with his fiancée. Belokin is the third son of the Valheim family, and he remembers a younger brother who was too frightened to meet his eyes. Now that supposedly useless child looks straight at him and calmly says that everyone needs a break sometimes. Belokin has already heard that Krash defeated Anics, but Krash does not give him time to investigate. Rahern Academy accepts students through an entrance examination, regardless of status, so Krash asks why his brother is wasting time here instead of preparing for it. The question strikes Belokin's pride. As a direct descendant of Valheim, he considers himself far above ordinary nobles, and treats concern over an entrance exam like a commoner's problem. He dismisses Anics as nobody important, calls Krash a commoner, and waits for the insult to make him angry. Krash simply agrees with him. That calm answer irritates Belokin more than any argument could. Belokin finally explains why he came. The family has ordered Krash to accompany him to Mount Gueri Lac and help contain an outbreak of world erosion. Krash immediately points out that Valheim children are not required to accept family missions until they turn 15. He is only 13, but Belokin says the rule will not be a problem, because he will accompany Krash as his guardian. Nothing about that offer makes Krash feel protected. He reads the assignment as an attempt to test his new strength and keep him under control. The mission could even be a trap. Still, Krash accepts because this kind of disaster is far more familiar to him than peaceful family life, and he already has a way to escape if Belokin tries anything. When Krash tells Bianca that he will be away and orders her not to follow, she objects immediately. Sending a 13-year-old into a world erosion zone makes no sense to her. Her objection gives Krash the perfect way to pressure Belokin. His generous older brother is now dragging a 13-year-old into a dangerous mission, while that boy's 12-year-old fiancé watches. Belokin answers with an irritated grunt and walks away rather than arguing in front of her. Krash pats Bianca's head and praises her, although she has no idea how she helped him. She only asks him not to collapse again. Krash straps on his sword and leaves Green Pine Manor to prepare for the mission at Mount Gueri Lac. By the time Krash reaches Mount Gueri Lac with Belokin and the Valheim Knights, another world has already turned part of the mountain into a swamp. This phenomenon is called world erosion. It changes the land, releases foreign creatures known as corroded species, and eventually replaces the affected area with a piece of another world. Mount Gueri Lac is only a 3-star erosion zone, so a mid-tier expert knight order should be able to clear it. Belokin is already a high-tier expert. As long as his knights kill the creature controlling the zone, known as the Master, the Purification Squad can remove the remaining erosion. Belokin says he only brought Krash, so a low-tier expert could gain real combat experience. Krash knows his brother is testing him, but that is not why our boy accepted the assignment. Krash came to test a temporary way to control the rampage caused by extreme blood immersion poison, while he waits for a chance to take Bianca's Snowdoll curse. The party begins cutting through the corroded species covering the swamp. The knights kill them quickly, but their numbers keep slowing the advance. Krash recognizes one headless species with rows of teeth running across its body. He warns the knights that its bite causes severe swelling, and tells them to cover their entire bodies in aura before getting close. The knights immediately follow his instruction. One young knight asks whether Krash has entered an erosion zone before. Krash answers that a 13-year-old normally would never be allowed near one. The knight accepts the answer without realizing Krash learned everything in his first life. Belokin first entered an erosion zone at 15, and the creatures frightened him so badly that the experience destroyed his pride. Krash is 2 years younger, yet he calmly advises trained knights as if this were an ordinary patrol. Belokin imagines Krash growing into someone like Charlotte. If the younger brother he dismissed as useless surpasses him too, Belokin fears that he will become Valheim's new failure. He quickly pushes the thought aside and leads the party deeper into the swamp. As they approach the center, the smaller corroded species suddenly disappear. Belokin treats the empty path as good luck, but Krash sees a warning. With no lesser creatures helping sustain the zone, the 3-star master must be maintaining the entire swamp by itself. The warning unsettles the knights. Belokin tells them not to lose their nerve because of a child, calls the enemy nothing more than a 3-star master, and orders a quick kill. Krash lets them continue. He already gave them the warning, and the swamp contains the world erosion energy he came to test. After mastering the foundation of extreme blood immersion poison, Krash can see the red-black energy flowing through the swamp more clearly than he could in his first life. He takes out an unidentified perforated sample and swallows it. The reaction is immediate. His vision twists, his body folds forward, and he drops to one knee while coughing blood into his hand. The young knight rushes over. Krash hides the experiment by saying that he tripped. Balokan offers to carry him on his back, but Krash refuses and forces himself upright. World erosion energy affects his body like a powerful poison. Following the secret manual, Krash keeps his aura circulating and pulls the foreign energy into that flow until the two begin merging inside him. The method works, but it also triggers the rampage he came here to test. Red-black distortion floods his senses until he can no longer tell where his real body stands, or which part of the world around him still exists. That is when Krash uses another art from the Valheim archive. A blind ancestor created the sixth sense, so a swordsman could feel the world through aura, instead of relying on sight. Krash releases a thin layer of aura around his body. It reaches no farther than the length of his finger joints, but that is enough to feel the ground beneath his feet and confirm his position. Once he separates those real sensations from the false world created by the rampage, the red-black distortion begins to thin. For the first time, Krash controls the poison without losing himself inside it. The result is only temporary. Absorbing more world erosion energy can trigger another rampage, and the sixth sense cannot suppress it forever. Krash still needs Bianca's Snowdoll curse for long-term control. Even so, this is the first time the technique has allowed him to grow to the next level. He wipes the blood from his mouth and turns back toward the mission. Then the darkness in front of the party begins gathering into enormous pieces of flesh. A long red-black body rises from the swamp, covered in human faces embedded along its twisting segments. Above them towers a larger long-haired face with glowing red eyes and a mouth full of teeth. Krash and Balokan both freeze as the creature reveals its full size. The master of Mount Guerilak is Senganki, the 3-star thousand-faced demon. The party is ordered to prepare for battle. Balokan steps to the front and activates Ignis. Orange flames cover his sword and roll across his shoulders as the Valheim Knights praise the skill's destructive power. Krash recognizes it immediately. Ignis is the same skill that burned his arm before. Balokan turns toward his younger brother and demands that Krash acknowledge the difference in their strength. He has no intention of wasting time on someone he still considers trash, so he charges Senganki while Krash remains outside the main formation. Krash watches from a distance. In the original timeline, Balokan was as cruel as he was proud, and Krash needs to know whether regression changed either part of him. Purple-black shadows gather around Krash's arm as he hopes his brother stayed exactly the same. The fight begins badly for the Knights. Senganki controls 8 enormous arms at once, and even the senior fighters struggle to avoid them. One frightened apprentice starts talking about retreating before the demon's curse catches them all. Balokan cuts him off by launching a wide arc of fire across the battlefield. Ignis crashes into Senganki, covers its body in flames, and creates the opening the Knights need to advance. With the entire group following behind him, Balokan finally looks toward the place where Krash was standing. His little brother is gone. Balokan briefly wonders whether Krash has already died, but Senganki changes before he can search for him. Black-red tears begin pouring from the human faces embedded across the demon's body. Their mouths open together in a scream, its limbs expand, and the pressure around the monster becomes strong enough to throw Balokan backward. Balokan realizes they must kill Senganki before the transformation goes any further. He covers his next strike with aura and drives Ignis into the demon again, but this attack does nothing. He immediately orders the Knights to attack with him. Nobody answers. When Balokan turns around, every knight has become a silent figure with a blank face in his distorted vision. He finally understands that Senganki cursed him without touching him, and that the unease he felt earlier was the curse taking hold. The battlefield changes into a rain-soaked version of the swamp, leaving Balokan completely alone. He can no longer see the real battle or hear his knights. All he can feel is Senganki closing around him and the certainty that he is about to die. The curse attacks the fear Balokan has spent his life hiding. A false Charlotte takes shape in the rain and reminds him that his sister surpassed him despite being 3 years younger. She calls him an idiot, accuses him of losing his entire knight order, and says he will die as the same failure he was terrified of becoming. Balokan tries to escape, but a huge dark hand drags him through the mud while the false Charlotte continues tearing into his pride. Before the next manifestation reaches him, Krash crashes into it with an orange-red aura strike and breaks the limb apart. He runs through the rain, reaches his unconscious brother, and carries him away from the center of the curse. Balokan wakes up with Krash supporting his body. He is shocked that his younger brother is still alive, so Krash explains that he stayed outside the main battle, avoided Senganki's gaze, and pulled Balokan out when the swamp swallowed him. Balokan immediately insists that he can walk alone. Krash can tell that the curse left his brother unable to use aura, but Balokan still refuses to rely on someone he considers an idiot. Pride does not change their situation. The brothers walk through the rain without reaching the edge of the erosion zone. No matter which direction they take, the same swamp continues around them. Krash concludes that Senganki sealed the surrounding area inside a closed space. If there is no exit, their only way out is to kill the demon that created it. Belikin is weakened, his knights are nowhere in sight, and his strongest attack already failed. Fighting Senganki again with only Krash beside him sounds ridiculous, but wandering through the swamp until the curse kills them is even worse. Krash tells Belikin that he has a secret killer technique. He says Charlotte taught it to him, and credits that technique for letting him fight Anix at the Star Sanctuary. The decisive strike against Anix actually came from the One-Sword Manual, written by an untalented Valheim ancestor. Krash credits Charlotte because Belikin distrusts him, but cannot dismiss the genius who surpassed him. Belikin also knows that Charlotte favors Krash, the younger brother who shares her mother, so the lie is easy to believe. Belikin asks whether this technique can truly defeat Senganki. Krash answers yes. Trying his plan gives them a chance, while avoiding the master only leaves them trapped inside the encroachment until they die. Krash admits that Belikin has no reason to trust him. Instead, he asks whether Belikin trusts Charlotte's ability. That is the one question his brother cannot reject. Belikin agrees that Charlotte is a genius and reaches for Krash's offered hand. If this plan fails, both brothers will die, but he has no better option. Their hands clasp in the rain. Purple-black shadows rise behind Krash as he smiles and promises Belikin that the plan will not fail. Senganki returns before Belikin can reconsider the plan. Its enormous body pushes through the rain, and the human faces buried across its flesh stare at the two brothers as Krash prepares his sword. An unusually pure blue aura gathers around the blade. Belikin has never managed to control aura that cleanly, but he recognizes the technique from Charlotte. She once told him that if she used her secret technique, he should add Ignis to the attack. That memory is enough to make him cooperate. When Krash asks for the flames, Belikin willingly transfers part of Ignis onto his brother's sword. Orange fire wraps around the blue aura, and Senganki charges before Krash finishes preparing the strike. Belikin braces himself to buy more time, but Krash tells him that he has already done enough. The flame burning on Krash's sword is brighter than Ignis ever looked in Belikin's hands. Belikin knows that this attack can kill the monster that destroyed his knights and left him running for his life. But that realization forces him to compare himself to the younger brother he has always called useless. If Krash defeats Senganki after Belikin failed, then Belikin is the weaker one. His pride collapses just as Krash moves. Senganki extends its arms across the swamp, but Krash closes the distance and drives his burning blade through the demon. One stroke tears across its entire body, and a pillar of blue light and orange fire erupts through the encroachment. Senganki burns until its massive body breaks apart. The rain stops, the false swamp dissolves, and the brothers return to the green ravine beneath a clear sky. Belikin believes the battle is over. Then Krash draws his sword across him. The strike catches Belikin off guard. He tries to activate Ignis, but no flames answer him. Purple-black shadows spread from Krash, while Belikin realizes that his skill is gone. The plan was built around Black Hood's three conditions. Belikin opened the locks by giving Krash part of Ignis, admitting that Krash handled the flame better, and finally accepting that his supposedly useless brother had surpassed him. When Krash released one stroke, Ignis became his. Krash thanks his brother for remaining exactly as cruel and prideful as he remembered. Then he drives the stolen flame into Belikin and leaves him burned, helpless, and screaming on the ground. Krash admits that he once wanted to get along with his brothers. He kept trying even after an older brother warned him as a child not to do anything unnecessary. But Belikin never stopped treating him with open hostility. Part of Krash still hoped this mission would make Belikin acknowledge him. Instead, Belikin only handed over Ignis, because refusing would have gotten him killed. Krash asks whether the burns hurt. Belikin once burned Krash's arms and face, and Krash remembers writhing from the same pain while his brother watched. Now Belikin kicks and thrashes beneath his own flames while Krash stands over him. Once the screams weaken, Krash looks toward the clear sky and notes how nice the weather has become. By the time Krash returns to the Valheim main house, false testimony has already reached the family. According to the report, the 3-star erosion zone suddenly rose to 5 stars. Belikin's entire night order was wiped out, and Belikin sacrificed himself so Krash could escape alive. A memorial is already being held in Belikin's honor. His personal butler collapses in grief and demands to know why the family's useless child returned when his master did not. The Valheim head butler immediately silences him. According to the official account, Krash is the younger brother Belikin died protecting, so insulting him would dishonor Belikin's final sacrifice. Krash watches from the doorway and sees that everyone believes the story. With the household mourning Belikin as a hero, nobody is questioning what Krash did after Senganki fell. The expedition also advanced Krash's secret art. Sixth Sense can now restrain the rampages from extreme blood immersion poison to some extent, which lets him use the art more effectively, even though the danger has not disappeared. More importantly, he now owns Ignis. Krash tests the stolen skill by applying its flames to the power of world erosion. Instead of Ignis's normal orange fire, a purple-black flame rises from his palm. Its color looks ominous, but its firepower exceeds his expectations. So Krash decides to keep the black flame as a trump card. Only one problem remains. Because the erosion zone jumped from 3 stars to 5, Krash must answer questions from the World Erosion Investigation team. The investigators do not know what caused the change, but Krash does. A world eroder is interfering with reality. Its main body sleeps inside an eternal dream, so it watches the real world through immortal servants called undead. Krash expects to encounter one of those minions soon. He does not expect one to be waiting behind the investigation room door. The woman introduces herself as Saphira, a 4th-class investigator from the World Erosion Investigation team. She has long brown hair, an official uniform, and a black star marked on her neck. Krash recognizes the mark immediately. He calls her an undead and offers her a deal. If she cooperates with him, he will erase her immortality. Saphira's polite expression changes. White hair and red eyes appear through the shadow covering her face, and a sharp smile spreads across her lips. Then she asks Krash whether he is the regressor. She says she came for a different objective and never expected to catch an irrelevant target like him. Krash faced the immortal behind this meeting in his first life. Arthur's party once raided Crimson Garden August, whose true body was chained inside a volcanic chamber by another curse. They damaged August badly enough for Krash to target the curse of immortality, but Black Hood refused to take it unless Krash first became stronger than its owner. Back in the present, the investigator asks what could make a child believe he can kill someone who has transcended time. Krash's knowledge and confidence already convinced the investigator that he regressed, but the promise to erase immortality still sounds like a lie. Krash answers by activating Black Hood. Purple-black hands and mouths rise around him and reach toward the curse of immortality. Black Hood does not steal the curse because Krash is still far weaker than its owner, but the reaction proves that his skill can target it. The investigator's hostility immediately turns into interest. Immortality has become a prison, so August kept raising erosion zones in the hope that someone strong enough to kill the immortal would eventually appear. Now a boy who can remove the curse is standing in front of them. When the immortal asks for Black Hood's condition, Krash gives a simple answer. He must become stronger than August, so he wants August to make him stronger. The request doubles as an offer. If August trains Krash until the lock opens, Krash will eventually take the immortality that August desperately wants to lose. The investigator accepts and reveals the real identity behind the meeting. Crimson Garden August declares Krash a disciple and promises to raise him into the strongest man alive. August releases enough aura to overwhelm Krash without bringing the true body anywhere near him. In the original timeline, August could rival Arthur and commanded the powerful fighters of Crimson Garden. Gaining that monster as a master gives Krash another path toward the power he needs. Working with a world eroder does not bother him. Krash already watched the world end once, and he will use August's power if it prevents the same annihilation. He also knows there will not be a third life. Regression returned to Arthur when Krash entered this timeline, making Arthur the true owner again. Krash was only carried backward by the stolen skill, so he cannot restart the world if this life fails. Their new master and disciple relationship lasts only a moment before August corrects Krash's attitude and orders him to use the word master. Before Krash can leave the main house, a hooded member of Valkyrie, Lady Valheim's direct night order, delivers another surprise. Krash's mother, Lady Arya, has summoned him. Arya never visited Krash while he was living away from the family, so her sudden interest makes him suspicious. The messenger adds that Krash's father has returned from the Forbidden Domain and wants to meet him as well. That news is far more dangerous. Krash says the Valheim family head has reached the realm of a demigod, and he suspects his father noticed a change in him through the stars. Lady Arya ordered Krash to remain at the main house until the meeting. Krash asks one careful question before agreeing. Did that order come directly from his father? It did not. Bianca is waiting at home, and Krash has too many other plans to waste an unknown amount of time inside the main house. He tells the messenger that he will return when his father personally summons him, then leaves in a carriage. A large red crow named Krim follows the carriage and immediately starts ordering the new disciple around. Krim is the mobile form August uses, while the immortal's true body remains chained inside the volcanic chamber. When Krash complains that the red feathers attract too much attention, Krim turns them black and proudly asks whether the disguise looks convincing. Krash is not impressed. He asks about August's true body instead, but Krim reminds him that the body cannot move and calls him an ill-tempered regressor. Krash keeps the correction about Arthur to himself, explaining that he only borrowed the result of regression would make the ride longer. As the carriage approaches home, Krash warns Krim to behave around the white chick living there. Krim expects an animal, only to find Bianca waiting at the entrance in a white chick-shaped hood. Krash points at his 12-year-old fiancé and tells Krim that this is the chick he meant. Ariad welcomes Krash home, and immediately hands him a letter from Darling Donphelion. The eccentric alchemist has already completed the medicine for the discoloration disease killing Ariad's daughter, and promises to deliver it soon. Until Darling delivers the medicine, Ariad's daughter cannot begin treatment. Krash tells Ariad to treat the alchemist with great care, because Darling is about to become his daughter's benefactor. Ariad accepts the order, then tells Krash what happened while he was gone. Bianca heard that Krash had been trapped in a world erosion incident, and became so worried that she ordered a carriage to take her all the way to the main house. Months of living together have changed their relationship, but Krash has not checked Snowdoll's locks recently. Bianca's attempt to cross the territory just to find him gives him a reason to look again. Black Hood displays the first condition, become Bianca's friend. This time, the lock reads complete. Bianca still owns Snowdoll because one more lock remains, but she now sees Krash as a real friend, instead of only the fiancé chosen for her by their families. Bianca notices Krash staring at her and asks whether something is on her face. Krash quickly redirects her attention to Krim. He introduces the large black bird as a new friend, and tells Bianca that the feathers are as soft as whipped cream. Bianca reaches up, lifts Krim over her head, and pulls the bird into a tight hug. Krim does not enjoy being crushed in her arms, but Bianca refuses to let go. Krash finally learns that his quiet fiancé likes animals. With Bianca distracted, he checks the remaining lock on Snowdoll. The second lock demands a deeper bond. Krash must become someone important to Bianca as family, a close friend, or a lover. Romance might look like the simplest route because they are engaged, but Krash rejects it immediately. Bianca is 12, while he carries an adult's memories, so he will have to open the lock another way. Krim finally escapes Bianca's arms, announces that playtime is over, and drags the new disciple to the residence training grounds. By nightfall, Krash is lying on the stone court with his sword beside him, and barely enough strength to sit up. Speaking through Krim, August calls his natural talent garbage. Krash can only agree that Valheim branded him a failure for a reason. Everything Krash has achieved came from his first life's experience, and the secret techniques he recovered after regression. August warns that a true genius could close that gap in less than 5 years. But Krash has Black Hood. If he lacks talent, August will train him until he can steal it from someone who has more than enough. Their final target remains August's immortality. Krash must become stronger than the immortal before Black Hood can take the curse. Krash tells August that part of the agreement was never in doubt. A few days of training pass before Darling Donphelion arrives at the residence and immediately calls Krash honey. Krash ignores the flirting and asks for the medicine. Darling proudly hands him a small bottle containing the completed treatment for discoloration disease. Krash takes it, which means the medicine Ariad's sick daughter needs is finally ready, although she has not received it yet. When Darling asks whether this proves his genius, Krash says that part was obvious from the beginning. The praise sends the eccentric alchemist straight into his arms, forcing Krash to peel him off before the conversation can continue. Darling also heard that Anix resumed training after the fight at the Star Sanctuary. Anix stopped pushing himself after losing to Charlotte, but he began again after his defeat against Krash. Krash briefly wonders whether humiliating the traitor caused the change, then decides he does not care. August refuses to let Darling leave, because Krash's weak body needs another upgrade. The solution is an elixir, an extremely expensive medicine that strengthens both the body and aura. Noble families guard their elixir recipes closely, which kept them completely outside Krash's reach in his first life. August already knows a formula. Krash repeats the brewing instructions while Darling fills page after page with notes. When Darling asks where a 13-year-old found such valuable knowledge, August tells Krash to present it as a secret Valheim family recipe. Darling accepts the explanation and agrees to brew the elixir, but knowing the formula is only half the problem. The rare materials are harder to obtain than the money needed to pay for them. 2 ingredients cause the greatest trouble. The first is snow heat sun fungus, which grows in Hardenheart's territory. The mountains there are steep and heavily damaged by world erosion, making the fungus extremely difficult to locate. Since Bianca comes from the family ruling that land, Krash plans to ask her for help. The golden dragon herb is worse. It grows near golden dragon nests in remote Fiania territory. Krash could search the black market, but getting caught buying it would create a serious political problem. Darling knows a cleaner route. Fiania is holding a martial arts tournament for competitors under 15, and the golden dragon herb is the first place reward. Krash is 13 and can enter, but competing openly as a Valheim would attract the entire empire. He believes Fiania is using the tournament to strengthen its position against Rahern Academy, so the appearance of a Valheim heir could turn a junior competition into a political fight. Darling has already prepared a solution. He hands Krash a vial of transparent liquid, and tells him to drink it. The potion leaves Krash standing in the training grounds with long dark hair, a feminine outfit, and the appearance of a girl his age. Darling explains that entering as an unidentified girl will let Krash compete without exposing the Valheim name. Darling hugs the transformed Krash and celebrates the plan, but Krash orders him to let go and change him back. Purple-black shadows explode around Krash. When Darling hesitates, Krash asks whether the alchemist is messing with him. Darling can only apologize while Krash remains trapped in the female disguise. A few days later, Darling's joke transformation has worn off, but Krim never let it interrupt Krash's training. Inside the stone arena, Krim surrounds him with red-black tendrils and attacks from several directions at once. Krash reads the paths, slips past the first few strikes, and gets knocked down when the barrage becomes too fast for his body. Krim explains that the lesson is called the Pure Blade Technique. It teaches Krash to read an opponent's movements the moment an attack begins. Combined with his experience and sixth sense, it brings his reactions close to precognition, without actually letting him see the future. His weak body is the only part that cannot keep up. Krash already knows how he should move, but his muscles respond too slowly. If Darling's elixir strengthens his body and aura, that gap will finally begin to close. After training, Krash drinks Darling's real disguise medicine and prepares to leave for the tournament in Fiania. The magic-proof potion masks him as an ordinary commoner boy, which only confirms that Darling never needed to turn him into a girl in the first place. Krash also cannot enter Fiania openly without exposing the Valheim name. Ariad uses a contact named Flocker from the Lawless Zone to arrange a legal passage with a female merchant who trades in eroded species. She will hide Krash among her cargo while they cross the border. The merchant arrives with attendants and an eroded creature locked inside a cage. She tells Krash to stay hidden among the cargo during transit, while Ariad remains behind to guard Green Pine Manor. The old butler vows to refuse every visitor while Krash is gone, even if the head of the Valheim family appears at the door. Darling's medicine cured Ariad's daughter the day after she received it. When the relieved butler said he could finally die without regrets, Krash ordered him to stay alive and keep serving. Ariad swore that he would, leaving Green Pine Manor in the hands of a man who no longer had a reason to betray him or throw his life away. Before the carriage departs, Bianca comes to see Krash off. She has agreed to help him secure the Snow Heat Sun fungus from Hardenheart's territory, although they have not obtained it yet. Bianca also gives him a basket of food for the journey, explaining the noise Krash heard while she prepared it the previous day. He thanks her and promises to return as soon as he can. Bianca says she will wait for him at Green Pine Manor. After they tell each other to stay safe, Krash enters the covered carriage and begins the journey toward Fiania with Krim flying beside it. For 5 days, the merchant follows a route around every erosion zone, while Krash trains with Ignis inside the carriage. The detour keeps them safe, but gives Krash no unpurified erosion to absorb, showing how carefully Ariad arranged the trip. While the merchant relaxes beside the carriage and eats an apple, Krim flies over and steals a bite. A moment later, Krim stops and senses trouble near the carriage. Several bandits have already surrounded the merchant. They seize both of her arms before she senses them approaching. Their masked leader steps forward while his men restrain her, and the merchant realizes that they are about to kill her. Before the leader can touch her, a purple-black slash tears through the group. Krash steps between the merchant and the bandits with Black Hood's shadows around his hand. Several attackers have already been knocked aside, but the remaining men rush him together and assume a child will be helpless without a weapon. Black Hood reaches for their swords first. The shadows rip the swords from the bandits' hands and place them under Krash's control. When one bandit asks what he can do without a weapon, Krash points to the swords floating beside him and asks whether he means those. Krash cuts through the charging group and leaves the leader standing alone. The man realizes that Krash is not an ordinary child, draws a heavy battle axe, and promises to kill him with one blow. The first strike crashes against Krash's sword. The leader follows with one swing after another, but Krash reads the movement of his shoulders, arms, and axe before each attack reaches him. Every time the blade comes down, Krash is already moving outside its path. The Pure Blade technique is working exactly as Krim intended. The leader realizes that Krash is reading his attacks, but he dismisses it as a cheap trick. Krash had hoped to defeat him with Pure Blade alone, without relying on Sixth Sense. Once the leader keeps forcing the exchange, Krash decides to use one of the secret techniques he remembers from his previous life. He holds his sword horizontally and deliberately waits for the leader to commit to a final attack. The man takes the opening and unleashes Phantom Battle Axe, creating a massive red-black strike meant to crush Krash's sword and his head together. That is the opening Krash wanted. He tells the leader that he fell for it, redirects the axe at close range, and covers his sword in orange Ignis flames. As Krash drives forward with the burning blade, the leader reacts in shock. Then the bandit leader asks whether Krash is a disciple of someone known as the Butcher Dog. The title Butcher Dog tells Krash exactly who the masked bandit serves. In Krash's first life, his older half-brother Belokin became a murderer known as the Butcher Dog and led a massacre in Starlin. Charlotte killed him at 16, ending the attack and becoming famous across the Empire in a single day. But none of that should be happening yet. The Valheim family believes Belokin died inside the erosion zone after sacrificing himself for Krash. Krash does not know whether the brother he left burning survived, but the butcher dog's followers were never supposed to appear this early. The timeline is changing faster than he expected. Ignis overwhelms the bandit leader and sends him crashing down in flames. Krash decides to win the Golden Dragon Herb, leave Fiania quickly, and investigate why Belokin's followers appeared early. Once he has more information, Krash soon reaches Ceylon, the imperial capital of Fiania. Young fighters have filled the city for the under-15 martial arts tournament, and the registration hall is packed. One girl watches from a balcony and calls the competitors her rough diamonds. She is Cicely Fiania, the 14-year-old 4th imperial princess, and the emperor's youngest daughter. She announces that she wants to drag every interesting fighter back to Rahern Academy, forcing Sarah, her trusted red-haired attendant and protector, to remind her to behave with some dignity. Cicely immediately pretends not to hear her. The childish behavior is deliberate. Cicely was already solving advanced mathematical problems at 7, and scholars believed her mind could change the history of the empire. Their praise placed her in danger of becoming a candidate in the struggle for the throne. Cicely believed her frail body would never survive that fight. She used the same intelligence everyone admired to play an uncontrollable and foolish daughter, until the court judged her unsuitable to rule. Sarah knows the entire performance is an act. The only problem is that Cicely has started taking it too far. That becomes obvious when she spots Krash below. Darling's tournament disguise gives him short dark hair and lets him pass as a commoner boy from Fiania, but Cicely notices his narrow eyes, gloomy expression, hood, and the black crow sitting on his shoulder. She decides that he looks like a villain, and wonders whether he came from Valheim, the greatest enemy of her empire. Sarah agrees that he looks suspicious, but she doubts a Valheim would openly enter the capital. Cicely trusts her intuition more, and climbs onto the railing to expose him herself. She jumps from the upper floor and comes crashing toward Krash before Sarah can stop her. Blue telekinetic force erupts around them during the collision, and Krash catches Cicely before she hits the ground. Instead of panicking over the princess in his arms, Krash calls her a wild girl and tells her to watch where she is going. That calm response gives Cicely her first real clue. An ordinary commoner would be terrified after grabbing an imperial princess, but Krash speaks as though her title means nothing. Cicely realizes that the disguised stranger already knows who she is. Krash also recognizes Cicely immediately, which only gives him another reason to leave. He came to Fiania for the tournament prize, not to attract the attention of an imperial princess who is much smarter than she acts. He completes his registration under the name Krad. The application lists him as 14 years old and gives his address as Olwen in the imperial territory, hiding his real identity as 13-year-old Krash Valheim. With his place secured, Krash searches for somewhere to sleep. The tournament has filled every inn in the capital, leaving him ready to spend the night outside. An elderly woman suddenly approaches and offers him a room at her own place. Krash knows that following a stranger who appeared at the perfect moment is suspicious, but he accepts immediately. Krim asks whether anyone ever taught him not to follow strangers. Krash explains that he spent enough nights sleeping outside during his first life, and refuses to do it again. The woman leads them away from the crowded center of Ceylon to a large timber and stone house. She gives Krash the room at the back of the second floor and tells him to come downstairs once dinner is ready. Krash thanks her and heads upstairs, satisfied that he found a bed after all. Cicely steps into view inside the same house and recognizes him from the registration hall. Krim immediately suspects that the perfectly timed offer brought them into the princess's house on purpose. Krash does not know whether the elderly woman and Cicely are connected, but exposing his identity would create a political disaster, so he ignores the princess and walks toward his room. Cicely follows directly behind him. She asks why he would ignore a cute girl, and Krash answers that she is not his type because plenty of people in the world are prettier than her. Cicely asks him to name one. Krash tells her that he has no reason to answer. The rejection only makes her more interested. Cicely asks Krash to eat dinner with her because she wants to learn more about him, but he refuses again and tells her to stop following him. Her playful expression finally disappears. Cicely reminds him that he knows she is a princess and asks whether he really thinks he can keep treating her that way. Before Krash can dismiss her again, she calls him by the alias on his tournament application. She asks whether Krad came from Starlin. Krash freezes. Their short conversation gave Cicely enough information to see through his false origin, even though she still does not know that Krad is Krash Valheim. Krash refuses to confirm Cicely's deduction. Saying more could expose him as a Valheim, so he denies everything and tells the princess to finish dinner and get ready for bed. Cicely demands to know who he is calling a child. Sarah points out that Krash is also a child, ending the argument before either of them wins it. Once Krash leaves, Cicely explains how she found his homeland. Starlin and Fiania use the same language, but their pronunciation differs slightly. Darling changed Krash's face, hair, and clothes, but the medicine could not erase the accent he developed while growing up in Starlin. Most people would never notice it. Cicely collects tiny details and reaches the answer before anyone else even sees the question, bringing her analysis close to the legendary perception known as mind's eye. However, she still has not discovered that Krash is Krash Valheim. Sarah offers to capture and question him. Cicely refuses because the mysterious stranger has finally made the tournament interesting. She also has a more urgent problem. Sarah investigated Cicely's older sister, third Princess Sigrun, and discovered that her personality changed completely within 1 year. Cicely immediately fears that the first and second princes are in danger, and that the palace is moving toward bloodshed. The next morning, Krash enters the tournament preliminaries before Cicely can extract anything else from him. Each preliminary group contains 100 fighters, but only 4 advance. Krash walks out as one of the 4 survivors, while the arena remains covered with defeated competitors. The spectators spend more time staring at the black crow on his shoulder than discussing the people he knocked down. As Krash leaves, a bandaged teenage fighter approaches him. The boy sees Krim and assumes the hooded competitor belongs to Night Raven, the assassination group feared throughout Fiania's underworld. Krash denies it. The teenager becomes nervous and explains that he only wanted to greet another underworld fighter, but then mentions that he does not know which powerful person is supporting Krash. That comment catches Krash's attention. Krim places the teenager under simple brainwashing magic, and Krash asks what happened to Night Raven. The boy says the organization is facing a crisis that could destroy it, but one assassin still entered the tournament under orders from Night Raven's new master. That master is supposedly second prince Chiffon Fiania. The answer does not fit the history Krash remembers. The imperial family always controlled Night Raven in secret, using its assassins to watch nobles who threatened the throne. That connection remained hidden until Fiania collapsed in Krash's first life. Now even a minor underworld fighter knows that Chiffon controls the group. Someone is deliberately exposing the secret and directing the blame toward the second prince. Chiffon supported the first prince in the original timeline, so destroying him would weaken both brothers. The person who benefits most is their sister Sigrun. Sarah's report makes that possibility harder to dismiss. Sigrun changed within a single year, which makes Krash suspect that Arthur used memory inheritance on her. The technique carried chosen companions' memories and combat experience into the past, so Sigrun may already know how the imperial succession ended in the destroyed future. That future placed Cicely in even greater danger. She eventually took the throne, transferred it to Arthur, hid the white dragon pearl that proved imperial authority, and then took her own life. Arthur became emperor in name, but Cicely's final move denied him the symbol needed to control Fiania. If Sigrun remembers that future, she knows her brilliant younger sister can overturn the succession. Framing Chiffon while removing Cicely would clear away 2 rivals at once. Krash cannot prove Sigrun inherited her memories, but he knows what will follow if Fiania collapses. World erosion will spread across the region without the Empire holding it back. He decides to interfere. Krash releases the brainwashed teenager with one instruction: return to the finalists, and repeat the rumor that Krash belongs to Night Raven. The boy is not useful enough to keep as a servant, but the rumor he carries will force the real assassin to investigate. That night, Cicely stops Krash again. This time she calls him by his real name and says she heard he crushed the preliminaries. Her deduction has moved far beyond his Starlin accent. She now knows that Krash is Krash Valheim. Krash still refuses to explain himself. He only warns her to protect herself when the main event begins tomorrow, then heads to his room. The warning confirms that someone is targeting Cicely while she is focused on the tournament. She asks Sarah whether they can trust the royal spy gathering information for them. Sarah promises to investigate the spy again before they rely on another report. Meanwhile, purple-black shadows gather around Krash. He plans to steal Sigrun's skill, but first he needs to expose the people carrying out her orders. Krim agrees to lend him power once. With that support secured, Krash prepares a skull-marked hood for the main event. If he looks enough like Night Raven in front of the entire arena, the real organization will have no choice but to answer. The next day, the tournament enters its top 32 main event. Krash defeats a fighter twice his size and wins the 32nd match while the crowd chants Night Raven. His bait has worked too well. Everyone now believes the hooded boy with the black crow is Fiania's most feared assassin, which means the real Night Raven cannot ignore him. Cicely watches from the upper seats despite Krash's warning. She leans over the railing and says that pretending to be Night Raven looks rather cool. Krash ignores her and leaves with Krim. Night Raven's real assassin has already taken the bait. Footsteps follow him into a dark corridor. A long-haired fighter appears with 2 short blades and asks whether impersonating Night Raven is fun. Red-black energy spreads behind the assassin as several glowing eyes open inside it. The fighter attacks from both sides. World erosion extends past the blades and forms claw-like strikes around Krash, but he slips inside the attack before they can close around him. One heavy blow knocks the assassin off balance. Krash follows by smashing his face into the floor, leaving the body bloodied before it can launch another attack. Krash calls the forbidden art useless and explains that an erosion attack like this does not work on him. Then he looks past the fallen body and calls out the person controlling it. Ebelask, a hooded young woman with enormous round glasses, appears beside the corpse and freezes when Krash identifies her. She is Ebelask Benapochi, the world's only necromancer, and the world eroder known as Night Raven. The Fenian royal family removed Ebelask's heart and has used it to control her for 1,000 years. That is why Night Raven was almost impossible to trace. If one of its assassins failed, Ebelask could abandon the corpse without revealing where she was hiding. In Krash's first life, Night Raven disappeared before he entered the academy. Arthur later brought Ebelask into the Azure generation because her necromancy was useful, but the other heroes only knew her as an eroder who hid inside her tent. None of them realized that the quiet necromancer had once controlled Night Raven. Now Krash finally understands how Arthur found her. He tells Ebelask that third Princess Sigrun currently controls the people holding her heart. Krash offers to steal it back and end the royal family's control, but Ebelask must explain Sigrun's plan in return. Ebelask is too shocked to answer in the corridor, so Krash demands her location and follows her to a hidden room buried under books, bags, and dust. Once they are alone, Krash activates Black Hood. Purple-black chains and padlocks surround Ebelask. Krash is targeting the heart that belongs to her, but Black Hood cannot take something she treasures unless she genuinely entrusts it to him. Ebelask immediately says she trusts him. Not one lock opens, because she is only repeating the words he wants to hear. Krash tells her to imagine the two futures in front of her. If he recovers the heart, she can hide in her room, let her corpses handle the work, and spend her days eating, playing, and resting. If she refuses, the royal family will keep controlling her and working her for the rest of her immortal life. That second future is enough to break through her hesitation. Ebelask has already served the Empire for 1,000 years and wants no part of another day. A Black Hood condition appears. Ebelask must offer her heart in exchange for her deepest wish. Her first attempt still sounds like a transaction, so Krash tells her to say what she honestly wants. Ebelask finally begs him to take her heart because she wants to live an easy life and slack off every day. The padlocks open. Black Hood now has Ebelask's willing permission to steal the heart, but the physical organ is still in the hands of Sigrun's people. Krash places a hand on the necromancer's head and tells her that the first part is complete. Now Ebelask has to tell him where the heart is and what Sigrun plans to do with it. Ebelask immediately asks when Krash will return her heart. He reminds her that Black Hood only opened the condition. Sigrun's people still hold the physical organ. Krash will steal it after Ebelask explains the plan. Ebelask complains that she offered her heart to avoid work and received another job before she could enjoy one day off. Krash ignores the complaint and asks what Sigrun is planning. The operation targets Cicely's protector Sarah. Mary Diana, the dark-haired spear warrior from Krash's old team, attacks Sarah and drives a spear through her body. Mary is the teammate who once charged into danger without caring what curse struck her, because she expected Krash to absorb it afterward. After Sarah falls, Ebelask is ordered to control her corpse and use it to murder Cicely. That would kill the fourth princess, while making her own trusted protector look responsible. Mary believes Sarah is dead, so the operation moves forward. Ebelask also confirms that Mary remembers the destroyed future. One day before the world's destruction, Arthur ordered everyone chosen for memory inheritance to meet at the Statue of Peace at 1 in the afternoon on the first Saturday after Regression. Mary arrived, but Arthur never appeared. Another missing returnee named Abella was absent as well. A year has passed since that failed meeting. Mary has spent it following Sigrun's orders, waiting for Arthur, and rebuilding the strength that once made her the hero's greatest spear warrior. Before Ebelask leaves the conspirators, Mary asks about the hooded boy competing in the tournament. She assumes Krash is another corpse under the necromancer's control, and Ebelask supports the mistake to protect his disguise. Mary warns Ebelask not to disobey while Sigrun is absent, and reveals that she currently holds the necromancer's physical heart. She even calls Krash a surprisingly cute corpse, completely unaware that the boy is alive. While Ebelask moves toward the palace operation, Krash enters his next tournament match against Pirette, a 14-year-old commoner from the countryside. Pirate dreams of world peace and looks completely ordinary, but Krash knows what years of effort will turn him into. In the first timeline, he became one of the Azure generation's strongest warriors, without a special bloodline or stolen power. He was also one of the few teammates who treated Krash with genuine kindness. When they fought in this same tournament, Pirette tried to convince him to leave Night Raven and enter Rahern Academy. Reaching the finals guaranteed admission, and the Academy's independence would have protected Krash from any nation trying to claim him. In the present, the crowd erupts when the fake Night Raven finally draws his sword. Pirette answers with 10 steps of heaven, a technique based on the sliding footwork he developed while growing up in deep snow. His feet glide across the arena as every step hides another feint, but Krash watched those movements throughout his first life. Combined with Sixth Sense, That knowledge lets him read every change of direction and block the entire technique despite moving more slowly. Pierrot cannot understand how a stranger knows his swordsmanship better than he does. Krash tells him to become strong enough to leave a seed of hope even when despair crushes everything else. Then he slips through the final attack and ends the match with 1-inch punch. As Pierrot lies in the arena, Krash remembers the first time the boy thanked him. Krash had absorbed one of Pierret's curses and placed it on his own body. Instead of treating him like a tool, Pierret thanked him sincerely and promised to become strong enough to help save the world. It was the first genuine thank you Krash had ever received. The current Pierret hopes they will meet again at Rahern Academy, echoing the promise from their first life. Krash advances, but the golden dragon herb is still waiting at the end of the tournament. Elsewhere in the palace, Ebelask meets second Prince Chiffon Fiania. Chiffon plans to use Night Raven to pull more nobles into his faction, and he orders the necromancer to remain obedient because he believes his people still control her heart. Ebelask lowers her head and lets him believe it. Black Dragon Knights suddenly force their way into the room and arrest Chiffon on suspicion of murdering Cicely. An assassination order issued under his authority was planted inside a Night Raven hideout, framing him as the man who ordered his younger sister's death. Chiffon denies writing it and commands Ebelask to kill the knights. She refuses to move, leaving him with no way to stop the arrest. Then Cicely walks into the room alive. Sarah stands beside her despite the spear wound Mary gave her. She tells the knights that she never saw an assassin, deliberately hiding Mary's attack while stripping the conspirators of the testimony they expected to use. Chiffon was framed with an assassination order, but the supposed victim and her protector are both standing in front of him. An unidentified conspirator watching the palace operation sees both women alive and screams for someone to explain what happened. It started on the night Sarah was supposed to die. Sarah had discovered that every spy placed inside the imperial palace had turned against Cicely. The fourth princess had already withdrawn from the fight for the throne, so Sarah could not understand why anyone was still targeting her. She rushed to warn Cicely, but Krim stopped her first. Speaking for August, Krim offered Sarah temporary immortality in exchange for some of her life force and ordered her to pretend to die. Sarah barely had time to accept before Mary Diana appeared and drove a spear straight through her body. The wound was real and should have killed her, which was exactly what Mary believed. August's temporary immortality kept Sarah alive long enough to hide until Cicely exposed the operation. Back in the palace, Cicely introduces Sarah as her personal knight and the former vice captain of the Yellow Dragon Knights. She immediately orders the arrest of the Black Dragon vice captain for espionage. The conspirators brought the Black Dragon Knights because they believed Cicely and Sarah were already dead. Instead, Sarah launches herself at the accused knights and slams them into the floor before they can react. Mary watches the operation collapse around her. She and Sigrun planted spies inside the Black Dragon Knights, and Ebelask was supposed to kill Sarah before using her corpse to murder Cicely. With Sarah alive and their spies exposed, Cicely has destroyed every part of that plan. Mary still has one way to force the assassination through. She holds Ebelask's physical heart, and any command carved into it becomes an order the necromancer cannot resist. Krash is standing nearby under the disguise Mary believes belongs to one of Ebelask's corpses, but she considers him harmless. Mary writes a new command into the heart, ordering Ebelask to kill the fourth princess immediately. The command wraps around Ebelask's body and forces her power to erupt. Because Mary still holds the heart, Ebelask calls for Krash before the command can make her attack Cicely. Krash activates Black Hood before Ebelask can attack Cicely. Purple-black energy tears the heart out of Mary's possession, and the command disappears with it. Mary realizes she has failed to kill Cicely, failed to remove Chiffon, and lost the heart that controlled Ebelask. Rather than retreat after the plan is exposed, she decides to finish the assassination herself. While everyone is distracted by Ebelask, Mary activates Excel, the technique she calls the Divine Spear. Her body launches towards Cicely at the world's fastest speed, and the princess has no time to move. Krash steps between them and blocks the spear with black flame. The collision sends golden and black energy across the room, but Krash holds his ground long enough to protect Cicely. His black flame burns the erosion power he absorbed through extreme blood immersion poison, giving him enough force to stop Mary's charge. Mary cannot understand how a corpse stopped Excel. Krash tells her that her simple way of thinking has not changed, making Mary realize that the disguised boy knows how she behaved in the previous timeline. Before she can question him, an Imperial official orders the Black Dragon Knights to seize her. They disarm Mary and arrest her for attempting to assassinate a member of the Imperial family. As the Knights drag her away, Mary desperately calls for Sigrun and Arthur, but neither one comes to save her. Cicely rushes to Krash and finds his hands trembling from the impact. Even with Black Flame, he barely blocked Mary, proving that he is still far below a master rank fighter. Cicely reminds him that she carries an Imperial Defense necklace, but Krash only cares that she survived. With the palace searching for more accomplices, he tells Ebelask to use the confusion and get them out. Before leaving, Krash warns Cicely to protect herself and watch her siblings closely. The attack proves that the conspiracy reaches deep into the Imperial family, so none of Cicely's siblings can be ignored. Ebelask opens a movement spell and teleports Krash and herself away. Cicely never gets the chance to thank him, but she remembers that he is heading to Rahern Academy. She decides to follow him there and repay the debt herself. Krash and Ebelask continue their escape in a carriage traveling through the forest. Her teleportation can move living people only over short distances and has too many restrictions for a longer escape, but it carried them far enough to leave the palace behind. Ebelask also secured the golden dragon herb during the operation and hands it to Krash. He finally has one of the 2 ingredients needed for August's elixir. Krash also keeps his promise. He tosses Ebelask her physical heart instead of using it to control her. Ebelask catches it in disbelief. She expected Krash to keep sending her on missions, but returning the heart makes her realize that he acts nothing like the other world eroders. Krash has no idea why she thinks he is one of them, until Ebelask mentions the erosion power inside his black flame. To an actual eroder, the energy Krash absorbed through extreme blood immersion poison feels like their own power. That misunderstanding is why Ebelask trusted his offer so easily, and it could cause more trouble when he meets other eroders. Before Krash can think any further, Krim interrupts him with an urgent report. One of August's subordinates has sent word about Krash's fiancée. Something has happened to Bianca. Far away, she lies motionless in the snow. Krim's full report makes the situation much worse. A masked killer known as the Butcher Dog invaded the mountains of Hardenhearts while Bianca was there. She disappeared during the attack, and nobody has found her since. Krash immediately connects the title to the Butcher Dog disciple he encountered on the road to Fiania. Now the master behind that fighter has attacked Bianca. He orders the carriage toward Hardenhearts without wasting another second. Ebelask agrees, but she is more confused by the fact that an eroder has a fiancé. She knows the youngest son of Valheim is engaged to a daughter of Hardenhearts, so Krad's identity no longer makes sense. Krash corrects both assumptions. He is not a world eroder, Krad is only an alias, and his real identity is Krash Valheim, the youngest son of the family. Ebelask can barely process that the suspicious stranger who stole her heart was a Valheim the entire time, but Krash tells her they can discuss it after Bianca is safe. In the Hardenhearts Mountains, a search camp has been built near the place where Bianca vanished. Her older sister Jenica, the second daughter of Hardenhearts, sits inside the main tent blaming herself. Jenica already had the snow heat sun fungus at the family manor. It is the remaining ingredient Bianca promised to bring Krash for August's elixir, but Jenica never told her younger sister it was available. When the market search failed, Bianca entered the mountains to find the fungus herself. Aside from the movement artifact she already carried, her only preparation was a survival book, forcing Jenica to gather a rescue party and chase after her. A few days earlier, Jenica caught up with Bianca and immediately insulted Krash while ordering her sister home. She finally offered to give Bianca the fungus, but her anger made the offer sound more like she wanted Bianca out of her sight. Bianca took Jenica's words literally. She said she understood why her sister hated her and apologized because Jenica blamed their mother's death on her. Jenica tried to respond, but a black-haired man wearing a jagged gray mask stepped into the search party. Red-black energy surrounded him, and a large axe rested in his hands. The masked killer overwhelmed the guards before the sisters could react. One injured searcher ordered Bianca and Jenica to run, giving them enough time to escape into the mountain. The killer followed without any urgency, because he enjoyed hunting them. He considered the 2 Hardenhearts daughters perfect hostages, and had no intention of letting either one leave. Even while running for her life, Bianca refused to abandon the promise she made to Krash. Jenica only cared about keeping them alive, so she formed a plan around the movement artifacts both sisters carried. Those artifacts allowed Bianca and Jenica to cross unstable snow safely. Jenica suggested leading their pursuer into a crevasse zone where he should struggle to follow them. The plan did not even slow him down. The masked killer followed them across the dangerous terrain and cornered both sisters at a glacial cliff. Their only possible escape was a narrow foothold below the edge, but missing the jump meant falling into the ravine. Staying guaranteed their capture, so Bianca made the choice for both of them. She launched Jenica toward the foothold and sent her sister safely onto the ledge. The killer spotted the foothold and jumped after them. Jenica panicked, but Bianca told her to trust her. As the masked man descended, Bianca threw herself into him and knocked both of them away from the ledge. Jenica could only watch as Bianca and the attacker disappeared into the ravine. That was the last time she saw her sister. The searchers later found thick snow below the cliff, giving them hope that Bianca survived the fall. But an entire week has passed without any sign of her, and the masked attacker also vanished into the ravine. Jenica blames herself for hiding the fungus and choosing the crevasse route. Without those 2 decisions, Bianca would never have needed to throw herself into the attacker. One of the searchers tries to reassure her, but Jenica refuses to accept empty comfort. In her mind, a girl who spends most of her life reading has no chance of surviving alone in the frozen mountains for an entire week. Krash, Krim, and Ebelask reach the temporary camp while the search continues. The snow heat sun fungus is already sitting inside the tent, but Krash does not touch it. Finding Bianca comes first. Far from the camp, Bianca is still alive. She lies curled in the snow and quietly calls Krash's name. All she wants is to see him again. Bianca wakes up in the snow and realizes she fell asleep again. She is still injured from falling into the crevasse with the masked attacker, but her legs can move. After surviving the fall, Bianca climbed toward higher ground because she hoped to send a rescue signal from there. Instead, she found a cave filled with snow heat sun fungus. The rare fungus naturally releases heat, so Bianca used it to protect herself from the freezing mountain weather. With a survival book as her guide, she treated her injuries, gathered nuts and mushrooms, and stayed inside the unstable cave for several days. But the fungus could only keep her warm. It could not replace proper food or medical treatment. The cold, her injuries, and the lack of nutrition have pushed her body close to its limit. Bianca assumes the earlier avalanche delayed the search party. Until they find her, she keeps moving because she promised Krash that she would bring the snow heat sun fungus back to him. Unfortunately, the masked man has already found her. He follows Bianca through the snow while she searches for food. When Bianca notices an acorn, she even apologizes to the squirrel that buried it before reaching down to eat it. Before she can take it, the masked man slams his weapon beside her. The impact throws Bianca across the snow. He mocks her for showing no emotion and says she could have returned home safely if she had remained a quiet hostage. Then he grabs her by the throat and notices the blue snowflake ornament in her hair. Since it looks expensive, he takes it and plans to sell it. As Bianca hangs in his grip, she stops thinking about the fungus and only wants to return to Green Pine Manor. She remembers sitting with her books while Krash trained nearby. At the time, those peaceful days felt ordinary. Now she understands how precious they were. Bianca has always believed that she has no emotions, but the time she spent with Krash left something behind. A tear falls from her eye as she realizes that she was comfortable and happy beside him. She calls Krash's name one more time, and this time, he answers. Krash appears behind the masked man and strikes him hard enough to send him flying. He catches Bianca before she hits the ground, tells her that she endured enough, and promises to handle everything from here. Then he entrusts her to Krim and orders the crow to keep her safe. Krim stays with Bianca. Ebelask used warp to carry the group across the mountains, but she is too afraid of the masked man's master to enter the fight. With Bianca safe behind him, Krash faces the attacker alone. Krim warns him that this enemy is much stronger than the subordinate Krash defeated earlier. Krash only won that fight because he caught the man off guard. Krash does not care. Being physically stronger does not guarantee victory, and he has no intention of losing. The masked man demands to know why Krash interfered, but Krash points at the ornament in his hand and tells him to return it. It belongs to his fiancée. Krash also knows exactly who he is facing. This man is not Belokin. He is Bergman, another fighter carrying the title Butcher Dog. Why Bergman and the future Belokin share that title is still unknown. Bergman recognizes Krash as the Valheim boy and attacks immediately. Krash can barely follow his speed even with sixth sense, and the volume and control of Bergman's aura place him far above Krash. Krash has only recently reached the middle level of expert. The difference between them is enormous, but Krash still blocks Bergman's first strike. That only excites Bergman. He realizes that capturing both Krash and Bianca could earn him 10 times more money, so he swings his massive weapons again and tries to overwhelm Krash with raw force. Krash keeps blocking, but Bergman eventually spots an opening and moves in to finish him. Then, Krash disappears from his sight. Bergman can still smell him nearby, but he cannot find him before Krash slips inside his guard and drives a 1-inch punch directly into his body. The point-blank strike releases enough force to knock Bergman back and break his rhythm. Krash immediately prepares something stronger. Orange-red flames spread across his sword as he declares that he will end the fight here. But Bergman has another technique waiting for him. He activates Phantom Binding, and the space around Krash twists into a red-black distortion. A dark figure shaped like Krash appears inside it, while Bergman charges forward with his axe. Krash meets him with his burning sword. The search party will arrive at any moment, but Krash plans to finish Bergman before they get there. They rush toward each other. Phantom Binding attacks Krash's senses before Bergman's axe ever reaches him. The technique spreads aura through sound, distorting everything Krash hears and sees until he can no longer trust his own body. In the previous timeline, Bergman would have killed him right here, but Krash already learned how to fight without relying on his normal senses. He enters a perception state called Mind's Eye and reads the flow of aura throughout the battlefield. This lets him locate Bergman inside the distortion, but Krash still hides his strongest move. He needs Bergman to believe victory is guaranteed before using it. That is why Krash threatens to kill him before the search party arrives. Bergman recognizes the threat as a bluff, but he also remembers how strangely Krash moved when he blocked the earlier axe strike. He cannot tell how long Phantom Binding will keep working, so he stays cautious instead of rushing into Krash's range. Bergman even threatens to tear Bianca apart, but Krash refuses to react. Since the provocation fails, Bergman changes tactics and activates Phantom War Axe. Dozens of red axes fall from every direction. The Phantom weapons create false attack lines that hide Bergman's real approach and force Krash to spend aura tracking every possible strike. Watching from nearby, Ebelask realizes Krash could die and prepares to interfere. Krash returned her stolen heart, so she refuses to abandon the person who freed her. The problem is Bergman's master, known only as the Mad Dog. If Ebelask helps defeat Bergman, the Mad Dog could hunt both of them afterward. Krim stops her before she enters the fight, because Krash chose to face Bergman alone. Ebelask reluctantly stays back, although she promises to resurrect his corpse if he gets himself killed. Krash is already approaching that point. Tracking every Phantom Axe drained Krash's aura, forcing him to release Mind's Eye and rely on instinct. One of the incoming axes passes straight through him. It was another illusion, and Bergman used it to hide his real approach. He emerges at Krash's blind side and swings for the killing blow. Krash has never believed that he can defeat monsters like Bergman through talent alone. He is weaker than the geniuses around him, which is exactly why he kept his most dangerous weapon hidden until Bergman committed to the attack. Krash activates Forced Breakthrough and releases Fire-Quenching Erosion. Ignis burns the world erosion stored in his body by extreme blood immersion poison, forcing his strength and speed beyond their normal limits for 3 seconds. If he fails within that window, Bergman will still be close enough to kill him when the power disappears. Krash disappears from Bergman's vision and reaches his neck before the butcher dog can react. For the first time, Bergman genuinely believes he is about to die. At the last instant, Bergman activates Phantom Voice. The sound blurs Krash's vision just enough to move the strike away from Bergman's neck. Krash still burns him badly, but he misses the killing blow. Bergman immediately forms red claws around his arm and counterattacks. Fire-Quenching Erosion is already fading, and Krash knows the claws will tear out his throat if he cannot move first. With death directly in front of him, every unnecessary thought disappears. Krash enters a state called oneness with the world, passes through Bergman's claw before it reaches his throat, and drives his final strike into the butcher dog. Bergman understands the result before the impact lands. He quietly admits that he lost. A blue-white pillar tears through the battlefield and blasts Bergman into the snow. The butcher dog lies motionless beside his weapon, but Krash does not escape unharmed. Forcing his weak body beyond its limits demanded a heavy sacrifice. Krash's right arm is destroyed at the shoulder, blood covers his face, and he collapses moments after Bergman falls. Krim asks whether the victory finally satisfied him. Krash says he is nowhere close. With both children badly injured, the rescuers carry Krash and Bianca back to the Hardenheart's estate for treatment. In the failed timeline, Krash returned Bianca's emotions after the world had already taken everything from her. The Hardenheart's family had just been destroyed. Its head, Daggerkan Hardenhearts, suddenly lost his mind, slaughtered his own family, and then killed himself. Her older sister Jenica saved Bianca. With the rest of Hardenhearts dead, House Valheim no longer saw any value in the alliance between their families. They immediately broke Krash and Bianca's engagement, turning this meeting into their final farewell. Bianca tells Krash that she wishes she could express what she feels. Snowdoll has suppressed her emotions for so long that even after losing her family and her future, she cannot cry. Then she asks whether Krash would care if she died now that they are strangers. Krash does not know how to answer. He cannot tell whether living without emotion is worse than being forced to feel this much grief all at once. He even wonders whether the shock could destroy her, but he still activates Black Hood. Black Hood allows Krash to steal another person's curse and place its burden onto himself. When he removes Snowdoll from Bianca, every emotion the curse had buried immediately returns to her. Krash has already absorbed so many other curses by this point that Snowdoll cannot completely suppress his own emotions. Bianca finally feels the full weight of what happened to her. She realizes that the world waited until she had lost everything before allowing her to grieve for any of it. Giving her emotions back does not repair what the world has already done to her. After that day, Bianca becomes the monster later feared as the White Ghost. 3 years later, the Hardenheart's disaster has grown into a war. Soldiers believe the Empire sent the Poison King after its second prince sought asylum with the family, and that the Poison King drove Daggerkan insane. Bianca eventually kills him in revenge. Krash had also earned a name as part of the Azure generation, but he paid for it by abusing the curses inside his body. His condition became so severe that even a saintess could no longer heal him, which left Bianca as one of the last people who might be able to help. When Krash finally reaches her, an enormous wave of ice tears through the surrounding enemies. He follows the destruction and finds Bianca with a massive blade driven through her torso. But Bianca is no longer thinking about the battle. She is thinking about Jenica. Before saving Bianca during the massacre, Jenica admitted that she had never hated her from the bottom of her heart. She hated herself for resenting Bianca, because Bianca had never done anything to deserve that hatred. Back then, Snowdoll prevented Bianca from understanding those words. Now she finally realizes that Jenica loved her, and that is what Bianca regrets most. Her emotions did return, but they returned too late for her to tell Jenica that she understood. If the Hardenhearts family had shared their pain instead of burying it, perhaps everything would have ended differently. Bianca even wonders whether she and Krash might have remained together. But neither of them can change anything now. That ruined future disappears as the current Krash opens his eyes in a Hardenhearts recovery room. His body is wrapped in bandages, and one of his arms is gone at the shoulder after his final attack against Bergman. Bianca is sitting beside the bed, holding his remaining hand. Krash says the missing arm does not hurt as much as he expected. Then he immediately scolds Bianca for entering the mountains alone. She only wanted to retrieve the snow heat sun fungus she had promised him. But if Krim had not told Krash where she was, he might never have reached her in time. Bianca quietly places the wrapped fungus in his hand. Krash already has the golden dragon herb, so he now possesses both ingredients needed to make the elixir. Before doing anything with them, he pulls out Bianca's blue snowflake hair ornament. Bergman took it while holding her hostage, but Krash recovered it, and now places it back in her hair. Bianca should be relieved. Krash found her, defeated Bergman, and survived. Yet even after watching him lose an arm for her, Snowdoll still prevents her from feeling joy, anger, or sadness. For the first time, that emptiness frustrates her. Bianca wants to smile when Krash is safe. She wants to cry when he is hurt, and become angry when someone makes him suffer. She no longer wants to stand beside him without being able to share any of those feelings. There is only one thing stopping her. If Krash absorbs Snowdoll, she is afraid the curse will erase his emotions instead. Krash explains that Snowdoll only shows its full power against its original target. For anyone else, the curse's effect is cut in half. After hearing that, Bianca looks directly at Krash and tells him, "Please, bring back my emotions." Black Hood responds. Krash has been trying to steal Snowdoll for months, but the curse was protected by two conditions. He completed the first by becoming Bianca's friend. Now Black Hood reveals the second: become the most important person in Bianca's life. Bianca's request proves that he has. The lock opens, the chains around Snowdoll break, and Black Hood pulls the curse out of Bianca before placing its burden onto Krash. A smile breaks across Bianca's face even as tears begin pouring from her eyes. She leans against Krash, finally able to feel the fear of nearly losing him, the relief that he survived, and the pain he endured to save her. Krash smiles and holds her with his remaining arm. That was my plan from the start. Bianca's bright smile soon settles into a quiet expression again, making Krash wonder whether she is still learning to process her restored emotions. Before he can ask, Bianca's older sister Jenica comes to bring her to a family lunch at their eldest brother's request. Krash's meal will be delivered to the recovery room because he still cannot move properly. Jenica immediately notices a change in Bianca's eyes, yet she never meets Bianca's gaze. In the failed timeline, Jenica tried to apologize around this time, so Krash suspects she plans to do the same now. He tells Bianca that she owes Jenica no forgiveness. She can ignore the entire conversation, and once the lunch is over, they will return to their real home together. Bianca finally recognizes the warmth those words create inside her. She smiles and realizes that she feels happy. Once she leaves, Krash asks Ebelas to monitor the lunch through several red-eyed rats. If Bianca's family says one wrong thing to her, he is ready to tear down the entire estate. Speaking through Crimson Garden August reminds Krash that he promised to become stronger and steal the immortal's immortality, yet he is now missing his right arm. The Saintess of Freiman could restore the arm, but House Valheim would never pay that price for a son it considers a failure. Krash has a cheaper and much stranger solution. He wants Ebelask to attach the preserved right arm of the Sword Demon, a legendary swordsman who killed enemies before they saw his blade leave the sheath. August immediately refuses because the Sword Demon was Crimson Garden's most prized subordinate. Krash argues that if August wants him to become stronger, then August should raise him with the same care once given to the Sword Demon. When August refuses to surrender a treasured subordinate's remains, Krash threatens to torture the other Crimson Garden members and have a Saintess heal them until August reveals the location of the true body. Even Ebelask calls him monstrous. Krash finally argues that the transplant will preserve the Sword Demon's legacy. August gives in and tells him to wait 2 days, but complains that Krash only respects the name Crimson Garden when he wants a favor. With the replacement arranged, Krash still needs a cover story. House Valheim will hear that he lost an arm in Hardenhearts, but Ariad reported that Krash never left Green Pine Manor. If both stories reach the main house, the contradiction will expose his secret trip. Before Krash can solve that problem, the rats let him hear what is happening at the family lunch. Mariagan Hardenhearts, the family's eldest son, orders Bianca to surrender her position as Krash's fiancée to Jenica. Mariagan considers Bergman a peak expert, so Krash's victory makes the boy a future trump card for Hardenhearts. He wants to preserve the alliance with Valheim, but he does not know that Snowdoll is gone. He still considers Bianca cursed, and believes Jenica would be the safer fiancée. Bianca refuses. She admits that she is still a child, but that only makes her more determined to protect the one thing she wants. She will not hand her engagement to Jenica. Mariagan tells Bianca that a cursed girl like her will be discarded the moment Krash loses interest. Jenica protests, but their brother turns on her as well. If she feels so guilty about Bianca, then she should marry Krash herself, and start putting the family first. Hearing that finally pushes Bianca to say what she has kept buried for years. Hardenhearts never gave her a place in the family. Her father and brother never cared about her, so she no longer cares what happens to their house either. Even if they strip away her name, position, and everything she owns, Bianca will stay beside Krash. Krash has heard enough. Despite his injuries, he enters the room and presents Mariagan with two versions of the same incident. In the first, Krash Valheim heroically saved his fiancée and defeated the butcher dog at the cost of his right arm. In the second, Hardenheart's security was so incompetent that it failed to stop Bergman and allowed a direct Valheim descendant to be placed in mortal danger. The first story celebrates Krash without humiliating Hardenhearts. The second makes the family responsible for Krash's mutilation. With the patriarch away, Mariagan cannot afford to let that rumor reach House Valheim. Krash's price for controlling the story is simple. Bianca alone will decide whether she keeps the engagement or ends it. Her family will never make that choice for her again. He also makes one thing clear. Curse or no curse, he will not discard Bianca. Mariagan finally recognizes that the bond between them is real, and agrees to respect Bianca's choice. But Krash still has one more condition. In 2 days, Hardenhearts will publicly report that its priest healed Krash's missing arm. By then, the sword demon's arm should be attached, so the false miracle will hide the transplant and replace the conflicting reports with an official explanation. It also improves the priest's reputation, giving Mariagan a reason to agree. As Krash and Bianca leave together, Jenica realizes just how much her younger sister has changed. Bianca stays close to Krash, blushes, and asks whether they should simply get married already. Krash is too stunned to answer. At that same moment, an unidentified pale-haired figure in a dark cloak reads a report about Krash, quietly repeats his name, and walks away. 2 days later, Krash is already training alone in an open field outside Hardenhearts. Even though the promised replacement arm has not arrived yet, he tries to combine the sword demon's quick draw style with single strike by concentrating his aura and extreme blood immersion poison into one point. The incomplete attempt exposes a more important problem. Snowdoll is already cooling the poison inside him, which exposes fire-quenching erosion's greatest weakness. The technique raises Krash's internal heat so high that he cannot move when the boost ends, and extending it would burn his organs. After his arm heals, Krash plans to steal Flame Emperor Aslan Egret's lunar shadow physique. Its cold moon energy can balance the flames and extend fire-quenching erosion. For now, he has to solve the missing arm problem first. Krash returns to Ebelask's house, inside a huge dead tree. Ebelask has expanded its interior into a closed dimensional space large enough for her rooms and undead servants. Waiting inside is No. 8, a masked, rabbit-eared maid from Ebelask's single-digit undead legion. She carries the sword demon's preserved right arm while Ebelask prepares the transplant. Ebelask warns Krash that connecting a dead man's arm will hurt, and offers to knock him unconscious. No. 8 stands behind him, with a hammer large enough to make the method obvious. Krash refuses. He must stay conscious to control the extreme blood immersion poison. Otherwise, it could spread through the donor arm before his body accepts it. No. 8 pins Krash down, and Ebelask begins. Red-black necromantic energy closes around his shoulder as Ebelask regenerates the missing flesh and fuses the sword demon's arm to his body. She finishes by connecting the nerves. The pain hits all at once, but Krash remains awake. The donor arm swells and twists because it has not adjusted to his aura. Krash controls extreme blood immersion poison through the new flesh until the arm begins absorbing his energy. The distorted muscles slowly return to normal. Krash opens the new hand, moves each finger, and realizes that the sword demon's right arm already feels like his own. With the transplant complete, Krash asks to use Ebelask's training ground. Ebelask reminds him that she is not his servant. Then Krim mentions Hakubun, a lost ancient book Ebelask desperately wants to find, and she immediately allows Krash to use the room. There, Krim explains what made the sword demon's quick draw style different from an ordinary draw. A normal swordsman stores aura inside a sheathed sword and releases it while drawing. The sword demon divided that aura into fine particles and compressed them until the blade exploded from the sheath. Krash listens, then admits that he understood none of it. Krim tells him to rely on the new arm. The sword demon repeated this movement tens of thousands of times, leaving the physical memories engraved in his flesh. The arm itself can teach Krash, so Krash grips his sword and starts drawing. At first, his body, aura, and new arm refuse to move together, but every attempt lets the sword demon's muscle memory pull the blade along a cleaner path. After several days of training with no 8, Krash lowers his stance, compresses aura inside the sheath, and draws. The blade tears across the training ground in a single burst. The ground splits beneath the slash, and broken stone flies through the air as No. 8 avoids the strike. The attack is powerful, but it still falls short. The sword demon once cut people down before they could even see his blade. No. 8 saw Krash's sword from the moment it left the sheath. Krash realizes that his aura is now the problem. He needs to return to Green Pine Manor, strengthen it, and learn the next skill he has planned. No. 8 reminds him that every single digit undead is a master rank fighter. Forcing her to evade already proves how dangerous his quick draw has become. But Krash remembers that the people he failed to protect in the previous timeline will eventually become master rank fighters themselves. His current strength is still nowhere near enough to protect them. With his new arm working, Krash tells Ebelask that he is returning to Valheim that day. Ebelask wants to follow, but Krash stops her. Valheim's 5 elders control enough power that even the family's knights usually support them. If they find the world's only necromancer, they will try to enslave her and seize her undead army. Instead, Krash asks Ebelask to remain inside her linked house and watch the Poison King. In the failed timeline, the Poison King's arrival was followed by Patriarch Dagrakhan losing his mind, slaughtering his family, and killing himself. Krash wants Ebelask to protect Dagrakhan if the Poison King approaches Hardenhearts again. Ebelask knows the Poison King is one of the 10 great sovereigns, and has no intention of fighting him without a reason, but Krash only needs her to protect the Patriarch. In return, he promises to grant her one favor in the future. That is enough for Ebelask to accept. No. 8 points out that staying home suits Ebelask anyway. Ebelask agrees that she was always meant to be an indoor person. Krash finally leaves Hardenhearts in a covered carriage, and begins the snowy journey back to Valheim. Ebelask watches the carriage disappear, and decides that if Krash ever faces real danger, she will be there to repay what he did for her. Krash returns to Green Pine Manor, carrying the sleeping Bianca after their journey from Hardenhearts. Ariad welcomes them home, and explains that the Valheim main house noticed Krash was missing. To protect the cover story, Ariad reported that his young master had been staying with Lady Bianca at Green Pine Manor. The messenger handling the inquiry considered Krash a useless failure, and sent his report without checking it properly. The main house blamed him for the mistake, and fired him, protecting Krash's secret trip. But the attention has created a larger issue. The head butler will soon visit Green Pine Manor to re-evaluate Krash. She commands every Valheim butler, alone evaluates the direct heirs, and reports her judgment to the Patriarch. Her decision determines how each heir is treated. She is also a master rank fighter, making her far harder to fool than one careless messenger. Krash still welcomes the opportunity. He needs influence inside Valheim before he can approach Flame Emperor Aslan and steal the Lunar Shadow physique. If the head butler recognizes his strength, Krash can stop being treated as disposable and gain the family support required for that plan. Ariad also relays a message from Darling. The impatient alchemist wants the materials for the elixir immediately, but Ariad has one last surprise before Krash can deliver them. Charlotte is already inside the manor. More specifically, she has been staying in Krash's room. His older sister drops from the window and lands with enough pressure to freeze Krash in place. Charlotte is the 4th child of Valheim, and one of the family's greatest sword prodigies. Krash expected her, but he hoped she would take longer. Charlotte asks whether Krash wanted her to stay away, then releases enough pressure to make him wonder whether she has already moved beyond master rank. Before Krash can panic, she admits that she is joking, and turns her attention to Bianca. Charlotte heard that her little brother fought like a hero to save his fiancée, so she pinches the sleeping girl's cheek and assures Krash that she has no intention of stealing her. Charlotte is more offended that Krash called Green Pine Manor his house. It belongs to Valheim, which means it is also her house, and she refuses to be treated like an intruder. Krash quietly realizes that she has inherited their mother's ability to start an argument over one careless word. The real reason Charlotte is upset comes next. She believed that she and Krash were the closest siblings, yet he never told her that he had reached mid-level expert. She also mentions his supposed contract with a god, but that part is only the cover story Krash created to explain his abilities. His new rank, however, is impossible to hide from her. Charlotte studies Krash and says she can sense something ominous around him. At first, he thinks she has awakened Mind's Eye. Then he realizes her perception has already advanced into something even stronger. Star Eye lets Charlotte see the world through the stars, including the power of world erosion. It also explains why the butcher dog's illusions could never fool her. Krash immediately asks Krim what his black flame looks like to everyone else. Krim explains that ordinary people only see an ominous curse. Eroders, their servants, and a handful of exceptional humans can recognize world erosion for what it is. Krash is still different from a true eroder. They are world erosion itself, while Krash only mixes its energy with his aura. Charlotte can see the energy, but she does not know he controls it. Krash intends to keep it that way. He fears Charlotte will cut him down if she decides that he is becoming an eroder. Charlotte orders Krash to leave Bianca in his room and follow her to the training ground. Since her little brother has collected so many new abilities, she wants to test every one of them herself. Inside the training hall, Krash takes a wooden sword while Charlotte tells him to attack with everything he has. But for the next 3 minutes, she never draws her own sword or even coats herself in aura. Krash refuses to rush someone this far above him without an opening. Charlotte eventually gets tired of waiting and makes the first move herself. She crosses the hall almost instantly. Krash responds by burning the world erosion inside his body and forcing his entire body beyond its physical limits. Fire-quenching erosion. First form. Fire-quenching draw. The sword demon's right arm launches Krash's blade from its sheath in a purple-black burst. Charlotte blocks with her wooden sword, but the speed and force immediately tell her that Krash went all out from the first strike. Before the short power boost ends, Krash raises his sword and follows with Heavenly One sword. A massive black-purple slash crashes down through the training hall. Charlotte stops it with blue aura, but her wooden sword snaps during the clash. That only makes her more dangerous. Charlotte condenses her aura into a solid blue blade. Creating a weapon from pure aura is the symbol of a master-rank swordsman, and unlike the wooden sword, this blade will not break, just because Krash hits it harder. She swings directly at him and asks what he plans to do now that his sword is useless against hers. Krash reaches out with the transplanted right hand. Black Hood wraps around his fingers as he catches Charlotte's aura blade with his bare palm. While their powers collide, Krash steps inside her range. Krash drives his Black Hood-covered hand toward Charlotte. He cannot break through the aura protecting her body, yet the impact still reaches her guard and makes her eyes widen. Standing inside Charlotte's sword range, Krash quietly tells his sister that his attack reached her.